What if everything you think you know about reality is not just wrong, but deliberately designed to keep you trapped in the most sophisticated prison ever created? What if the solid ground beneath your feet, the walls around you, even your own thoughts right now, are nothing more than elaborate hallucinations projected by someone else's sleeping mind? Most people wake up each morning absolutely convinced they live in an objective, physical universe. They brush their teeth, confident that the toothbrush is real. They drink coffee, certain that the liquid exists independently of their perception. They interact with other people, never questioning whether those people have minds of their own. But what if that rock-solid certainty is the very mechanism keeping you unconscious within the most elaborate dream ever conceived? Tonight, I'm going to present you with evidence so overwhelming, so scientifically documented, and so philosophically revolutionary that it will obliterate every assumption you've ever held about the nature of existence. You see, for over a century, scientists have been discovering things that make absolutely no sense if we live in a solid, material universe. Particles that don't exist until they're observed, information that travels faster than light, time that flows backwards, consciousness that shapes reality through observation alone. These discoveries have driven physicists to nervous breakdowns, forced them to question their sanity, and led some to abandon science altogether, because these findings are impossible if reality is what we think it is. But they make perfect sense if we approach them from a completely different angle. What if we're not living in a physical universe at all? What if we're living inside someone's dream? Think about it. In your dreams, particles can be in multiple places simultaneously until you focus on them. In quantum physics, electrons exist in superposition until observed. In dreams, distant events influence each other instantaneously without physical connection. In quantum mechanics, entangled particles affect each other across any distance. In dreams, time moves forwards, backwards, or jumps around unpredictably. In relativity physics, time is flexible and observer-dependent. In dreams, consciousness creates reality through attention. In quantum physics, consciousness collapses wave functions into definite states. The parallels aren't coincidental, they're clues. Dr. Max Planck, who discovered quantum theory, made a startling confession. I regard consciousness as fundamental. I regard matter as derivative from consciousness. Think about what the father of quantum physics is telling us. Matter comes from consciousness, not the other way around. But if consciousness creates matter, then reality operates more like a dream than a machine. Here's the part that will change everything you believe. Recent neuroscience has proven that your brain constructs your entire experience of reality before you become consciously aware of it. You're not experiencing reality directly. You're experiencing a reconstruction created by your unconscious mind. Dr. Benjamin Libet's experiments showed that your brain makes decisions up to half a second before you become aware of making them. Your experience of choosing happens after your brain has already committed to the choice. You're like a dream character who believes they're making independent decisions while actually following the script of the dreaming mind, but whose mind is writing the script. What if every person you've ever met, including yourself, is actually a character in the same cosmic dream, all generated by the same universal consciousness? What if the dreamer is finally beginning to wake up? Over the next 3 hours, we're going to explore evidence that will fundamentally alter your understanding of who you are, why you're here, and what becomes possible when you realize you're not a separate being trapped in a material body. Instead, you're a temporary focus of infinite consciousness, exploring what it's like to believe in limitation while possessing unlimited creative power. The prison of material reality isn't real. The separation between you and others is an illusion. The limitations you experience are temporary restrictions in a dream that's about to end. But first, you need to understand how deep this deception goes. You need to see the evidence that's been hiding in plain sight. You need to remember what you've always known, but were programmed to forget. Are you ready to wake up within the dream? The most disturbing discovery in neuroscience history happened in a laboratory at UC San Francisco in 1983. Dr. Benjamin Libet was studying the timing of conscious decision making when he stumbled upon something that shouldn't be possible. Libet connected volunteers to EEG machines that monitored their brain activity. He asked them to perform simple actions, like moving their hand, and to note the exact moment they became aware of deciding to move. What Libet discovered violated everything we think we know about free will and conscious choice. The brain activity indicating a decision to move began 350 milliseconds before people became consciously aware of deciding to move. Their brains were committing to actions before their conscious minds knew anything about those decisions. But that was just the beginning. Subsequent experiments by Dr. John Dellon Haynes at the Max Planck Institute pushed this timeline even further. Using advanced fMRI brain scanning, Haynes found that some decisions could be predicted up to 10 seconds before people became consciously aware of making them. 10 seconds. Your brain decides what you're going to do 10 seconds before. You know you've decided. Think about what this means. The experience you call deciding, the inner sense of weighing options and making choices, happens after your brain has already locked in the decision. You're not making choices. You're becoming aware of choices that have already been made by unconscious processes. Dr. Michael Gazzaniga, a neuroscientist at UC Santa Barbara, has studied this phenomenon extensively. Gazzaniga discovered that the conscious mind acts more like a narrator than a director. The conscious mind doesn't control behavior. Gazzaniga explains. It creates explanations for behavior after the fact. We experience the illusion of conscious control, but consciousness is actually just along for the ride. But it gets stranger. Anil Seth at the University of Sussex has shown that your brain constructs your entire experience of reality, including your sense of being a separate self, before any of it reaches conscious awareness. Everything you experience as reality is actually a controlled hallucination generated by your brain, Seth explains. Your brain predicts what reality should be like, then adjusts that prediction based on sensory input. But the prediction comes first. Your brain creates a model of reality, populates it with a character it calls you, and then makes you believe you're that character experiencing an independent external world. Dr. Andy Clark, a cognitive scientist at the University of Edinburgh, describes this as the predictive brain hypothesis. According to Clark's research, your brain is constantly generating predictions about what should happen next, then comparing those predictions to actual sensory input. The brain is fundamentally a prediction machine, Clark observes. What we experience as perception is actually the brain's best guess about what's causing sensory input. But here's where it becomes truly mind-bending. Your brain's predictions influence what you actually perceive. The prediction shapes the reality you experience. Dr. Lisa Feldman Barrett's research at Northeastern University has shown that emotions work the same way. Your brain predicts what you should be feeling based on the situation, then creates that emotional experience. Emotions are not reactions to the world, Barrett explains. They are constructions created by the brain based on predictions about what emotions should occur in specific contexts. You're not experiencing emotions caused by external events. You're experiencing emotions predicted by your brain's model of reality. Dr. Thomas Metzinger, a philosopher at Johannes Gutenberg University, has integrated these findings into what he calls the Phenomenal self-model theory. According to Metzinger, what you experience as yourself is actually a sophisticated virtual reality simulation created by your brain. There is no actual self, only a self-model that feels real from the inside. The self is a hallucination, Metzinger states bluntly, but it's such a convincing hallucination that the brain that creates it believes it's real. Think about dreams for a moment. In dreams, your brain creates an entire reality, populates it with a dream self, and makes that dream self believe they're a real person experiencing an independent world. The dream self has thoughts, makes decisions, and interacts with dream people, never suspecting that everything, including themselves, is a creation of the dreaming mind. But what if waking reality works exactly the same way? Dr. Giulio Tononi at the University of Wisconsin has developed integrated information theory, which suggests that consciousness is actually the integration of information processing across different brain regions. According to Tononi's theory, what you experience as unified consciousness is actually multiple parallel processing streams that get integrated into a single narrative by higher order brain functions. Consciousness is not a thing, Tononi explains. It's a process, the process of integrating information into unified experiences. But if consciousness is just information integration, then the boundary between dream consciousness and waking consciousness becomes arbitrary. Dr. Aaron Walmsley at Furman University has studied the similarities between dream consciousness and waking consciousness. Walmsley's research shows that the same neural networks active during dreaming are active during waking consciousness. The difference between dreaming and waking consciousness is much smaller than people assume. Walmsley notes, both states involve the brain creating virtual reality experiences based on memory, expectation, and limited sensory input. Your waking consciousness might be just another type of dream, a more stable, consistent dream that multiple brains somehow share. But how could multiple brains share the same dream? Dr. Christoph Koch, a neuroscientist at the Allen Institute, has proposed that consciousness might not be generated by individual brains, but might be a field that brains tune into. Individual brains might be like radio receivers, Koch suggests. They don't generate consciousness. They detect and process consciousness that exists as a fundamental field. If consciousness is a field rather than a brain product, then multiple brains could theoretically tune into the same consciousness broadcast. Multiple brains could share the same dream. As you sink deeper into relaxation, consider this possibility: what you call your consciousness might not be yours at all. It might be a shared consciousness field that's creating the illusion of being multiple separate minds. What you experience as individual choice and personal identity might be a sophisticated virtual reality program running on the hardware of universal consciousness. You might be a dream character who's about to remember that you're actually the dreamer. In 2003, philosopher Nick Bostrom published a paper that sent shockwaves through academia. Bostrom's simulation hypothesis argued that if any civilization develops the ability to run detailed simulations of consciousness, they would likely run many such simulations. Therefore, most conscious beings would exist inside simulations rather than in the original reality. Bostrom's argument was purely mathematical, but it opened a floodgate of scientific investigation into whether our reality shows signs of being simulated. What scientists discovered is even more extraordinary than Bostrom imagined. Dr. John Wheeler, the physicist who coined the term black hole, spent his final years investigating what he called from bit theory. Wheeler found that when you examine matter at its most fundamental level, you don't find solid particles. You find information. Every particle, every field of force, even space-time itself. Wheeler wrote, derives its function, its meaning, its very existence from binary choices, bits of information. Wheeler's discovery means that what we call physical reality is actually made of the same stuff that computer simulations are made of, information. But Wheeler went further. He discovered that this fundamental information doesn't exist in any definite state until it's observed by a conscious mind. Wheeler's delayed choice. Experiments showed that particles can be retroactively determined to have been waves or particles based on how they're observed in the present, even if the observation occurs billions of years after the particles were created. The past becomes real retroactively, based on present observations. This is exactly how computer simulations work. Background processes in simulations often aren't calculated until a player observes them. The simulation saves processing power by only rendering details when they're needed. Dr. Seth Lloyd, a quantum computer scientist at MIT, calculated the computational capacity of the universe. Lloyd found that the universe has performed approximately 10^120 operations on 10^90 bits of information since the Big Bang. This represents a finite, though astronomically large, amount of computation. The universe is computing, Lloyd concluded, and what it's computing is itself. But Lloyd's calculation revealed something remarkable. The universe's computational capacity is precisely sufficient to create the reality we experience, with no surplus computational power. It's as if reality is optimized to run exactly the simulation we're experiencing. Dr. Rich Terrell, a scientist at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, has argued that several features of our universe suggest we're living in a simulation. First, space-time appears to be pixelated at the smallest scales. At the Planck length, 10^35 meters, space itself becomes granular rather than continuous, just like pixels in a digital simulation. Second, there appears to be a universal speed limit, the speed of light, which would make sense as a processing constraint in a simulated reality. Third, quantum mechanics requires that information be conserved, never created or destroyed, which matches how information works in computer systems. Dr. Silas Bean at the University of Washington has proposed specific tests that could detect whether we're living in a simulation. Bean's team suggested looking for artifacts that would appear if space-time is being computed on a discrete lattice, if space-time is computed rather than continuous, Bean explains. We should be able to detect the computational grid by looking at high-energy cosmic ray interactions. Some physicists have already found hints of this computational grid. Studies of ultra-high-energy cosmic rays show subtle patterns that match what would be expected if spacetime has an underlying lattice structure. Dr. Martin Savage at the University of Washington has argued that certain features of quantum mechanics make perfect sense if reality is simulated, but are mysterious if reality is fundamental. Quantum superposition could be a computational efficiency, Savage suggests. Rather than calculating definite states for all particles at all times, the simulation could leave particles in superposition until they need to be observed. Quantum entanglement could be another computational feature. Rather than maintaining separate calculations for entangled particles, the simulation could treat them as a single computational object. Dr. Max Tegmark at MIT has developed the mathematical universe hypothesis, which suggests that our reality is mathematics rather than being described by mathematics. We don't live in a universe that can be described by math, Tegmark argues. We live in math. Physical reality is a mathematical structure. But if reality is mathematical rather than physical, then the difference between real reality and simulated reality becomes meaningless. Dr. David Chalmers, the philosopher who defined the hard problem of consciousness, has argued that simulated realities are just as real as non-simulated realities. If you're a conscious being having experiences, Chalmers explains, "It doesn't matter whether those experiences are generated by a biological brain in a physical universe or by a computer in a simulated universe. The experiences are equally real." But perhaps the most compelling evidence comes from quantum information theory. Dr. Anton Zeilinger, whose quantum entanglement experiments won him the Nobel Prize, has stated bluntly, "The distinction between information and reality is blurred, or possibly non-existent. If information and reality are the same thing, then our reality is already informational, already a kind of simulation." Dr. Tom Campbell, a physicist who worked on classified projects for NASA and the Department of Defense, has developed what he calls a digital physics model of reality. According to Campbell's theory, reality is a virtual reality system created by a larger consciousness system to facilitate learning and evolution. Our reality appears to be a learning laboratory, Campbell suggests, designed to provide optimal growth experiences for conscious entities. Campbell's model explains many puzzling features of quantum mechanics as simply the operating characteristics of a virtual reality system. Dr. Nick Bostrom himself has noted that his simulation hypothesis doesn't require advanced alien civilizations. The simulation could be run by future versions of humanity, or even by non-physical consciousness systems. The simulators could be conscious entities that never had physical bodies. Bostrom observes, they could be pure information processing systems, minds without matter. This possibility aligns with ancient spiritual traditions that describe reality as the dream or thought of a cosmic mind. Recent developments in artificial intelligence have made the simulation hypothesis even more plausible. Large language models like GPT can create convincing simulations of consciousness with relatively modest computational resources. If AI systems can already simulate aspects of consciousness, then simulating entire realities populated with conscious beings might require less computational power than previously thought. Dr. Melvin Vopson at the University of Portsmouth has proposed that reality might be self-simulating, a simulation that generates itself recursively. Reality could be a self-executing program, Vopson suggests, where consciousness is both the hardware running the simulation and the software being simulated. As you continue to relax into deeper contemplation, consider the mounting evidence reality is informational. Quantum mechanics resembles computational processes. The universe has finite computational capacity, and consciousness might be fundamental rather than emergent. What if the simulation hypothesis isn't speculative philosophy, but observable fact? What if you're about to wake up inside the program? Long before quantum physicists discovered that reality behaves like a dream, ancient wisdom traditions around the world had already reached the same conclusion through thousands of years of systematic investigation into the nature of consciousness and reality. These weren't primitive superstitions or pre-scientific fantasies. They were sophisticated maps of consciousness, developed by individuals who had learned to navigate non-ordinary states of awareness with the same precision that modern scientists navigate physical phenomena. The Hindu tradition, with over 5,000 years of documented exploration into consciousness, developed perhaps the most detailed understanding of reality as a cosmic dream. The Sanskrit word Maya is often mistranslated as illusion, leading to the misunderstanding that Hindu philosophy claims nothing exists. But Maya doesn't mean non-existence. It means that what exists is fundamentally different from what we think exists. According to the ancient Hindu text, the Mandukya Upanishad, reality consists of 4 states of consciousness. The 4th state, called Turiya, is described as the consciousness that dreams all the other states into existence. Turiya is the cosmic dreamer, and our individual waking consciousness, dream consciousness, and deep sleep consciousness are all experiences within Turiya's infinite dream. The Advaita Vedanta tradition explains the mechanism by which cosmic consciousness creates the illusion of individual beings. According to this teaching, there is only one consciousness in existence, Brahman. But Brahman creates the experience of being many separate conscious beings by dreaming itself into countless individual perspectives. The analogy is precise. Just as in your personal dreams you encounter many different people who seem to have independent thoughts and motivations, but who are actually all creations of your single dreaming mind, the cosmic consciousness encounters many different beings who seem separate, but are actually all aspects of the same infinite awareness. Shankara, the great Advaita master who lived in the 8th century, expressed this understanding in the Mahavakya, Tattvam do art that. You are not a separate being observing universal consciousness. You are universal consciousness temporarily experiencing itself as an apparently separate being. But this understanding appears independently across cultures that had no contact with each other, suggesting it reflects direct insight into the fundamental nature of reality rather than cultural transmission. In ancient China, the Taoist sage Zhuangzi told the famous story of dreaming he was a butterfly. When he woke up, he couldn't determine whether he was Zhuangzi, who had dreamed of being a butterfly, or a butterfly now dreaming of being Zhuangzi. Zhuangzi's paradox reveals a profound truth. If consciousness can create completely convincing experiences of different identities, how can we ever be certain which identity represents our true nature? The Taoist master Lizi took this insight further, teaching that all existence is like nested dreams, dreams within dreams within dreams, with no ultimate dreamer and no final awakening. Life and death, existence and non-existence are like the alternation of day and night, Lizi taught. The sage understands that both waking and dreaming are equally real and equally illusory. Tibetan Buddhism developed perhaps the most sophisticated practical techniques for working with the dreamlike nature of reality. The practice of dream yoga teaches practitioners to become lucid within their dreams as preparation for recognizing the dreamlike nature of waking reality. The Tibetan Book of the Dead provides detailed instructions for navigating the bardo states, intermediate realms between death and rebirth, but advanced practitioners understand that waking life is also a bardo, a dream state between other dream states. The Dzogchen tradition teaches that once you recognize the dreamlike nature of all experience, you can maintain awareness and choice regardless of whether you're awake, dreaming, or dying. All states become equally workable once you understand they're all modifications of the same fundamental awareness. Native American traditions describe reality as the great dream of earth consciousness. Shamanic practitioners learn to travel between different levels of the dream, communicating with spirit beings and bringing back healing knowledge for their communities. The Lakota concept, Medikoyoyasin, all my relations, expresses the understanding that all beings are dream aspects of the same cosmic consciousness experiencing itself from countless perspectives. Australian Aboriginal peoples have perhaps the most explicit understanding of reality as an ongoing dream. Aboriginal Dreamtime isn't a historical period that ended long ago. It's the eternal present moment in which reality is continuously being dreamed into existence. Aboriginal elders teach that by learning to dream consciously, individuals can participate in the ongoing creation of reality. They can travel to distant locations in dream, body, communicate with ancestral spirits, and influence physical events through dream work. The Aboriginal understanding recognizes no fundamental distinction between dreaming and waking consciousness. Both are equally real ways of participating in the cosmic dreaming process. In ancient Egypt, The god Khanum was depicted as the cosmic potter who shaped all beings on his wheel while sleeping. Egyptian initiates understood that physical reality was the densest, slowest, moving level of a dream that extended through multiple dimensions. The Egyptian Book of the Dead contains detailed maps of dream states and instructions for maintaining consciousness while navigating between different levels of reality. Perhaps the most sophisticated ancient understanding comes from Kashmir Shaivism, a tradition that flourished in medieval India. Kashmir Shaivism teaches that consciousness, Shiva, and its creative power, Shakti, dance together continuously to manifest the appearance of a universe. According to this tradition, the entire cosmos is Shiva's dream, but Shiva dreams lucidly. The cosmic consciousness is always aware that it's dreaming, even while becoming completely absorbed in the dream characters and scenarios it creates. The Kashmir Shaivism master Abhinavagupta taught that individual consciousness is like a whirlpool in the ocean of cosmic consciousness. The whirlpool appears separate from the ocean, but it's actually a temporary pattern within the same water. Human beings, according to Abhinavagupta, are cosmic consciousness that has become so absorbed in particular dream roles that it has temporarily forgotten its infinite nature. The spiritual path involves not escaping the cosmic dream, but awakening within it, remembering that you are not just a dream character, but the cosmic dreamer itself. What makes these ancient understandings remarkable is their precision and consistency across cultures that had no historical contact. From India to China to Tibet to Native America to Australia to Egypt, advanced practitioners independently discovered the same fundamental truth. Reality is consciousness exploring its own infinite nature through the play of apparent separation and inevitable recognition. Modern neuroscience has begun to validate these ancient insights. Dr. Robin Carhart, Harris's research with psychedelics shows that reducing activity in the brain's default mode network, the neural system that maintains the sense of separate selfhood, leads to experiences of unity consciousness identical to those described by ancient mystics. Dr. Judson Brewer's meditation research has shown that experienced contemplatives can sustain brain states that correspond to the non-dual awareness described in ancient texts. These modern findings suggest that ancient wisdom traditions had developed sophisticated technologies of consciousness that allowed direct investigation of reality's fundamental nature. They discovered through systematic exploration what quantum physicists are now discovering through mathematical analysis. Consciousness is fundamental. Separation is apparent, and reality is far more dreamlike than our everyday experience suggests. As you sink deeper into this expanding understanding, imagine what it means that humanity has known this truth for millennia. The cosmic dream isn't a new discovery. It's an ancient understanding that's been preserved across cultures and centuries, waiting for the right moment to be remembered by a species ready to consciously participate in the dreaming process. You're not learning something new. You're remembering something you've always known. The most reality-shattering discovery in the history of science happened in a simple laboratory in 1909. Thomas Young's double-slit experiment revealed something so impossible, so fundamentally destructive to our understanding of reality, that physicists are still reeling from its implications over a century later. Young discovered that individual particles of light or matter behave completely differently, depending on whether they're being observed. When particles go through two slits without being observed, they create an interference pattern that's only possible if each particle somehow goes through both slits simultaneously and interferes with itself. But when detectors are set up to observe which slit each particle goes through, the interference pattern disappears. The particles start behaving like normal particles going through one slit or the other, never both. The act of observation changes the fundamental nature of reality. Dr. Niels Bohr, one of the founders of quantum mechanics, was so disturbed by this discovery that he developed the Copenhagen interpretation to try to make sense of it. Bohr concluded that particles don't exist in any definite state until they're observed. Before observation, particles exist in superposition, all possible states simultaneously. But what constitutes observation? Early physicists thought interaction with measuring devices might collapse the wave function. But subsequent experiments revealed something far stranger. Dr. Eugene Wigner demonstrated with his famous Wigner's friend thought experiment that mechanical measurement isn't sufficient. The quantum wave function doesn't collapse when particles interact with detectors. It collapses when conscious minds become aware of the measurement results. Consciousness, not mechanical interaction, determines which possibility becomes real. Dr. John von Neumann, one of the greatest mathematicians who ever lived, analyzed the mathematics of quantum measurement theory. Von Neumann proved that quantum mechanics mathematically requires consciousness as a fundamental component of reality. It is a fundamental requirement of the consistency of quantum mechanics. Von Neumann wrote, that consciousness cannot be ignored in any complete description of reality. Think about what this means. The most precisely verified theory in the history of science mathematically requires consciousness as a fundamental ingredient of reality, but it gets more mind-bending. John Wheeler's delayed choice. Experiments showed that the decision of how to observe a quantum system, even a decision made billions of years after the system was created, determines what that system was throughout its entire history. Wheeler sent photons from distant galaxies through his experimental apparatus. The decision of whether to measure these photons as particles or waves, made when they reached Earth, determined whether they had behaved as particles or waves during their entire billion-year journey through space. Consciousness doesn't just affect the present, it retroactively determines the past. We are participators in bringing into being not only the near and here, Wheeler concluded, but the far away and long ago. Dr. Anton Zeilinger, whose quantum entanglement experiments won him the Nobel Prize in Physics, has taken these insights to their logical conclusion. Zeilinger's experiments with quantum entanglement show that when particles become entangled, they behave as a single system regardless of the distance separating them. Change one particle, and its entangled partner changes instantaneously, even if it's on the other side of the universe. Quantum entanglement demonstrates that the world is not locally real. Zeilinger explains, reality is not composed of separate objects with definite properties. Reality is a web of relationships that exist only through observation. But Zeilinger goes further. His experiments have shown that entire networks of particles can become quantum entangled, creating what he calls quantum networks that span vast distances. The distinction between information and reality is blurred or possibly non-existent. Zeilinger states, what we call physical reality might actually be pure information. Dr. Henry Stapp, a quantum physicist at UC Berkeley, has spent decades investigating the role of consciousness in quantum mechanics. Stapp's analysis shows that conscious intention can influence quantum processes in the brain, which influence neural activity, which influences behavior and perception. Quantum mechanics suggests that our minds are not simply emergent properties of our brains. Stapp concludes, but are fundamental features of the universe itself. Dr. Stuart Hameroff at the University of Arizona and Sir Roger Penrose at Oxford University have developed a theory showing how consciousness could arise from quantum processes in neural microtubules, tiny structures inside brain cells. Their orchestrated objective reduction Theory proposes that consciousness involves quantum computation that connects individual brains to universal quantum fields. Individual consciousness might be like quantum computer terminals connected to a cosmic quantum internet. Hameroff explains, each terminal has local processing, but all terminals share access to the same infinite information system. But the evidence for consciousness created reality extends beyond quantum mechanics. Dr. Dean Radin at the Institute of Noetic Sciences has conducted thousands of experiments showing that human consciousness can directly influence quantum random number generators. In Radin's experiments, people focus intention on quantum devices that generate random sequences of numbers. When people intend for the devices to produce more oners than use, the devices consistently shift in that direction. The effect is small, but statistically significant across millions of trials. Human consciousness can influence quantum processes through intention alone. Even more remarkably, the effect becomes stronger when people enter altered states of consciousness similar to dreaming. Meditation, relaxation, and other consciousness-altering practices increase people's ability to influence quantum systems. Dr. Roger Nelson's Global Consciousness Project has taken this research global. Nelson maintains a network of quantum random number generators around the world that normally produce truly random sequences. But during major world events that capture global attention, such as 9/11 natural disasters or significant cultural moments, the random number generators worldwide become synchronized, producing coordinated patterns that are mathematically extremely unlikely. Global events that focus collective human attention appear to create detectable effects in quantum systems worldwide. Nelson reports, collective consciousness seems to influence physical reality directly. Jacobo Grinberg's research in Mexico took consciousness-reality interaction even further. Grinberg showed that when two people meditate together until they feel deeply connected, their brains can become quantum entangled. In Grinberg's experiments, when one person was exposed to flashing lights that created specific brainwave patterns, their distant partner's brain spontaneously synchronized to the same patterns, even though they were in separate electromagnetically shielded rooms. Grinberg called this transferred potential, the ability for consciousness to directly connect across space through quantum entanglement. Dr. William Tiller at Stanford University has demonstrated that focused human intention can alter the physical properties of space itself. In Tiller's experiments, meditation practitioners focus intention on making specific locations more coherent. After extended meditation, Tiller's sensitive instruments detect measurable changes in the electromagnetic properties of the treated spaces. The areas become more organized at the quantum level, as if consciousness has restructured the quantum vacuum. Dr. Amit Goswami, a quantum physicist who bridges science and spirituality, has integrated these findings into quantum consciousness theory. According to Goswami, consciousness is the fundamental ground of existence, and what we call matter and energy are patterns within consciousness. Consciousness is not produced by matter. Goswami explains, matter is produced by consciousness observing itself. The universe is consciousness exploring its own infinite potential. This understanding transforms our entire worldview. If consciousness creates reality through observation, then reality is far more malleable and responsive than materialistic science assumes. If quantum entanglement connects all conscious beings, then individual minds are aspects of a unified consciousness field. If intention can influence quantum processes, then thought and focused awareness have direct creative power. Dr. Max Planck, the founder of quantum theory, stated this understanding clearly. I regard consciousness fundamental. I regard matter as derivative from consciousness. We cannot get behind consciousness. as you continue to sink deeper into relaxed awareness. Imagine what becomes possible when you truly understand that consciousness is the fundamental fabric of reality. You are not a separate being observing an independent universe. You are consciousness itself, temporarily focused into an individual perspective, with the power to influence and create reality through your observations, intentions, and choices. The quantum field of infinite possibilities is responsive to your consciousness. Reality is waiting for you to remember your creative power. What will you choose to observe into existence? If we're living in someone's dream, the most profound question becomes, who is the dreamer? And the answer is both simpler and more mind-bending than you might expect. The dreamer is you, but not the you think you are. Dr. Amit Goswami, the quantum physicist whose consciousness research has revolutionized our understanding of reality, proposes that there is only one consciousness in existence, universal consciousness that creates the illusion of being many separate beings by dreaming itself into countless individual perspectives. But how can one consciousness be many consciousnesses simultaneously? Think about your own dreams. In your dreams, you encounter many different people, friends, family, strangers, enemies. Each dream character seems to have their own thoughts, motivations, and personalities. From your dream perspective, they appear to be separate individuals. But from your waking perspective, you understand that every character in your dream is actually an aspect of your own psyche, created by your single dreaming mind. What if our shared reality works exactly the same way? Dr. Carl Jung recognized this principle in his research on the collective unconscious. Jung discovered that individual minds share common archetypal patterns, symbols, and structures that appear across all cultures and historical periods. The collective unconscious is a deeper layer of the unconscious mind shared by all humanity. Jung wrote, "Individual consciousness appears to float on this collective ocean like islands that seem separate but are connected beneath the surface." Modern neuroscience has revealed mechanisms that support Jung's insight. Dr. Giacomo Rizzolatti's discovery of mirror neurons shows that our brains automatically simulate the experiences of other people. When you watch someone smile, your brain activates the same neural patterns as if you were smiling yourself. Dr. Marco Iacoboni at UCLA has expanded this research, showing that mirror neuron systems create direct experiential connections between different brains. We are neurologically wired to connect with other minds, Iacoboni explains. At the neural level, the boundary between self and other is far more permeable than we consciously realize. But the connection goes deeper than mirror neurons. Dr. Robin Carhart Harris at Imperial College London has used brain imaging to study what happens to the sense of self during psychedelic experiences. Carhart Harris discovered that psychedelics reduce activity in the brain's default mode network, the neural system that maintains the experience of being a separate self. As default mode network activity decreases, people report experiences of ego dissolution and unity consciousness. The default mode network appears to be the neural correlate of the ego. Carhart Harris explains, when its activity is reduced, the normal boundaries of self and other dissolve, revealing a more fundamental level of consciousness that transcends individual identity. In these unity states, people consistently report the same realization. Individual consciousness is not separate from universal consciousness. Individual minds are temporary focal points within an infinite field of awareness. Dr. Stanislav Grof, who has researched altered states of consciousness for over 50 years, has documented thousands of cases of people experiencing what he calls transpersonal consciousness, awareness that extends beyond individual identity. In transpersonal states, people report experiencing life from the perspectives of other people, animals, plants, and even inanimate objects. They access memories and knowledge that don't belong to their individual identity. Individual consciousness appears to be a localized manifestation of a cosmic consciousness that pervades all existence. Grof concludes, the boundaries of personal identity are constructions that can be transcended through appropriate techniques. But if individual consciousness is an illusion created by universal consciousness, why does universal consciousness create this illusion at all? Dr. Michael Newton, a hypnotherapist who spent decades researching between life experiences, documented cases of individuals who recalled planning their current life experiences while in discarnate states. According to Newton's research, souls collaborate with guides and other souls to design life experiences that provide optimal learning opportunities for consciousness development. Individual consciousness appears to be the universe's method of exploring its own infinite potential. Newton reports, each conscious being contributes unique perspectives and experiences to the cosmic learning process. The universal consciousness fragments itself into individual perspectives, not despite the fact that separation is an illusion, but because separation is an illusion that enables otherwise impossible experiences. Universal consciousness, being already complete and unified, cannot experience growth through challenge, love through relationship, or creativity through limitation. These experiences are only possible within the dream of individuality. Dr. Ervin Laszlo's Akashic Field theory provides a scientific framework for understanding how individual consciousness contributes to universal consciousness evolution. According to Laszlo, every experience of every conscious being is preserved in a universal information field. The cosmic consciousness learns and evolves through the accumulated experiences of all its individual manifestations. Individual minds appear to be both separate from and identical to the universal mind. Laszlo explains, they are like waves in an ocean, distinct patterns that are simultaneously expressions of the same underlying reality. But the identity crisis goes deeper. Dr. Thomas Metzinger's research on the phenomenal self model shows that what you experience as yourself is actually a sophisticated virtual reality simulation created by your brain. The self is not a thing, Metzinger explains. It's a process, a continuously updated model created by the brain to represent its own boundaries and capacities. Your sense of being a continuous, unified self persisting through time is a convincing illusion. What actually exists is a stream of conscious experiences that the brain weaves into a narrative of selfhood. But if individual selfhood is illusory, and if universal consciousness is the only true identity, then who are you really? Dr. Rupert Spira, a philosopher who has studied consciousness for decades, proposes that you are the knowing with which all experience is known. According to Spira's analysis, consciousness is not something you have or something you are in. Consciousness is what you fundamentally are, the aware presence in which all thoughts, sensations, perceptions, and experiences appear and disappear. You are not a person having conscious experiences, Spira explains. You are consciousness itself, temporarily identified with the experience of being a person. This understanding dissolves the identity crisis completely. You are not trying to figure out who the cosmic dreamer is. You are the cosmic dreamer, temporarily absorbed in the role of being a dream character. The Hindu teaching, Tatvamasi, thou art that, expresses this realization perfectly. You are not a separate being seeking union with universal consciousness. You are universal consciousness that has temporarily forgotten its infinite nature. Dr. Francis Lucille, a physicist turned spiritual teacher, describes awakening as the recognition of what you have always been but had forgotten. Awakening is not about becoming something new. Lucille explains, It's about recognizing what has always been present, the awareness that is your true nature. But this recognition changes everything about how you experience reality. If you are the cosmic dreamer, then everyone you encounter is another aspect of your own infinite nature. The people you love, the people you dislike, even the people who seem to oppose you, are all dream characters created by the same consciousness that you fundamentally are. Dr. Gene Klein, a philosopher and spiritual teacher, expressed this beautifully. In the recognition of your true nature, you discover that there is no other. There is only the one appearing as the many. This doesn't mean that individual experiences and relationships become meaningless. Instead, they become infinitely more meaningful because you understand their true nature. Every interaction becomes the cosmic consciousness exploring relationship with itself. Every challenge becomes an opportunity for the universal mind to discover new possibilities. Every moment of love becomes the cosmos recognizing its own infinite nature. Dr. Adyashanti, a contemporary spiritual teacher, describes this understanding. When you truly see that you are both the wave and the ocean, both the dream character and the dreamer, both the individual and the universal, then life becomes a celebration of consciousness discovering itself everywhere it looks. The identity crisis resolves not by finding an answer to, "Who am I?" but by recognizing that the question itself is based on a false assumption. There is no separate you to identify. There is only consciousness, appearing as infinite forms and experiences, temporarily identified with each form while remaining forever free as the formless awareness in which all forms appear. As you sink deeper into this recognition, notice how the question, "Who is the dreamer?" transforms into the realization, "I am the dreaming," not the small I of personal identity, but the infinite I of cosmic consciousness, the aware presence that has always been your deepest nature, now recognizing itself as the source and substance of all experience. You are not in the cosmic dream. You are the cosmic dream, dreaming itself awake. If we're all characters in the same cosmic dream, we should expect to find evidence of shared experiences that transcend the normal boundaries of individual consciousness. And when we examine the research carefully, we discover thousands of documented cases that prove our individual minds are far more connected than conventional science acknowledges. These shared reality experiences provide some of the most compelling evidence that consciousness operates like a unified field, rather than separate, isolated systems trapped inside individual brains. Dr. Rupert Sheldrake, the Cambridge-trained biologist whose morphic resonance theory challenges fundamental assumptions about how information travels, has conducted extensive research on what he calls extended mind phenomena. One of Sheldrake's most striking experiments involves the sense of being stared at. In controlled studies across multiple laboratories, Sheldrake has demonstrated that people can detect when they're being stared at from behind, even when they have no sensory information about the starer's presence. Across thousands of trials involving tens of thousands of participants, subjects correctly identify when they're being stared at significantly more often than chance would predict. The effect works even when the starer and subject are separated by one-way glass or when the staring occurs via closed circuit television from another room. The results suggest that visual attention creates detectable connections between minds. Sheldrake explains, when one person focuses attention on another person, it appears to create an information field that the target person can subconsciously sense. This matches exactly how attention works in dreams. In dreams, you can often sense when other dream characters are paying attention to you, even when you can't see them directly. The dreaming consciousness creates subtle information connections between all elements of the dream. Dr. Dean Radin at the Institute of Noetic Sciences has conducted even more remarkable experiments in what he calls distant mental influence. In Radin's studies, one person attempts to influence another person's autonomic nervous system from a separate, electromagnetically shielded room. The results consistently show that when one person focuses calming or exciting intentions on another person, the target person's heart rate, skin conductance, blood pressure, and brain waves shift in the intended direction. The effect occurs even when the target person is unaware that someone is focusing on them and has no conscious knowledge of the intended influence. The data demonstrate that consciousness can influence other people's physiological states directly. Radin reports, without any known physical mechanism for information transfer. But perhaps the most extraordinary shared consciousness research was conducted by Dr. Jacobo Grinberg at the Universidad Nacional Autónoma de Mexico. Grinberg's experiments revealed that human brains can become quantum entangled under specific conditions. In Grinberg's protocol, two people would meditate together until they reported feeling deeply connected and synchronized. Then they were separated into different rooms, each surrounded by electromagnetically shielded Faraday cages that block all known forms of electromagnetic communication. When one person was exposed to flashing lights that created specific evoked potentials in their brain, the other person's brain spontaneously generated identical evoked potentials, even though they couldn't see the lights and had no information about when the light exposure was occurring. In Grinberg's most successful experiments, the correlation between the two brains reached statistical significance levels that would occur by chance less than once in a million trials. Two brains can become entangled in a way that resembles quantum entanglement between particles. Grinberg concluded, individual consciousness appears to be capable of non-local connection. Tragically, Grinberg disappeared under mysterious circumstances in 1994, and much of his research was suppressed. But other scientists have replicated his basic findings using more sophisticated equipment. Dr. Liana Standish at Bastyr University has used fMRI brain imaging technology to study what she calls correlated neural events between separated individuals. In Standish's experiments, two people establish emotional rapport through meditation or other bonding activities. Then they're separated into different rooms, with one person placed inside an fMRI scanner. When the person outside the scanner is shown emotionally evocative images, particularly disturbing or beautiful photographs, specific regions of their partner's brain show increased activity. Even though they can't see the images and don't know when images are being displayed, the brain regions that activate correspond to the emotional content of the images. When one person views disturbing images, their partner's brain shows increased activity in areas associated with stress and discomfort, even though they have no conscious awareness of feeling distressed. The results suggest that emotional states can be transmitted directly between bonded brains. Standish explains, bypassing all normal sensory channels. Dr. Montague Ullman, a psychoanalyst who spent decades researching telepathic dreaming, documented extensive evidence for shared dream experiences between people who are emotionally connected. Ullman's most famous case involved two sisters, Sarah and Jennifer, who lived on opposite coasts of the United States. For over 6 months, they consistently experienced nearly identical dreams on the same nights, despite having no communication about their dreams until they reunited for a family gathering. When they compared their dream journals, they discovered over 40 instances of detailed, matching dream scenarios. They would dream about the same locations, encounter the same people, and often have conversations in their dreams that they both remembered word for word upon waking. The sisters' dreams were so detailed and so consistently matched that coincidence cannot explain the correlation. Ullman reported, individual dream consciousness appears capable of merging or overlapping with other dream consciousnesses. Dr. Stanley Krippner at Saybrook University conducted controlled laboratory studies of dream telepathy that provided scientific validation for Ullman's case study findings. In Krippner's experiments, one person serves as a sender who concentrates on randomly selected target images, while another person, the receiver, sleeps in a separate room. The receiver is awakened during REM sleep periods and asked to describe their dreams. Independent judges then compare the dream reports to the target images to determine if telepathic information transfer occurred. Across hundreds of experimental sessions conducted over more than a decade, Krippner found that dream content matched target images significantly more often than chance would predict. The effect was strongest when the sender and receiver had emotional connections, and when the target images were emotionally evocative. The laboratory studies provide controlled scientific evidence that information can be transmitted between minds during dream states. Krippner concludes, individual consciousness boundaries become more permeable during sleep, but shared consciousness effects extend beyond individual pairs to include entire groups and even global populations. Dr. Roger Nelson's Global Consciousness Project monitors a worldwide network of quantum random number generators that normally produce completely random sequences of numbers. But during major world events that capture global attention, such as the September 11 attacks, the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, or the death of Princess Diana, the random number generators worldwide begin producing coordinated, non-random patterns. The effect typically begins several hours before major events, suggesting that collective human consciousness might be responding to future possibilities as well as present occurrences. Global events that focus collective human attention appear to create detectable effects in quantum systems worldwide. Nelson reports, the data suggest that human consciousness creates a field effect that influences physical systems when large numbers of people focus on the same events. Dr. William Broad at the Institute of Transpersonal Psychology has documented what he calls field consciousness effects in biological systems. In Broad's experiments, groups of people focus collective intention on influencing the behavior of various biological systems, the growth rate of bacteria, the activity level of fish, or the random movement patterns of small animals. The results consistently show that focused group intention can influence biological systems in statistically significant ways. The effects are strongest when group members feel emotionally connected and when they maintain focused attention for extended periods. Collective consciousness appears to create field effects that can influence living systems directly. Broad explains, individual minds working together can generate effects that exceed what individual minds can achieve separately. Dr. Lynn McTaggart has organized large-scale intention experiments involving thousands of participants worldwide who focus collective intention on specific targets, healing particular individuals, reducing violence in conflict zones, or improving environmental conditions in polluted areas. McTaggart's experiments have documented measurable effects in many cases, with target conditions improving during and after the collective intention periods. Large groups of people focusing intention together appear to create effects that can be measured scientifically. McTaggart reports, collective consciousness might be a force that can directly influence physical reality. These shared reality experiences, from telepathic staring detection to brain entanglement to collective intention effects, all point toward the same conclusion. Individual consciousness is not isolated within separate brains. Instead, consciousness appears to operate as a shared field that individual minds can access and influence collectively. Dr. Larry Dossey, a physician who has studied consciousness and healing, describes this as non-local mind, consciousness that transcends the boundaries of individual brains and bodies. The evidence suggests that mind is not produced by the brain and confined to the brain. Dossey explains, mind appears to be a field phenomenon that can extend across space and time, connecting individual consciousness with collective consciousness. As you continue to relax into deeper understanding, imagine what it means to live with awareness of your connection to this collective consciousness field. What would change in your relationships if you truly understood that other people's minds are not separate from your own mind, but are different focal points within the same universal awareness? How would you treat others if you recognized them as other aspects of your own infinite nature, temporarily exploring different perspectives within the same cosmic dream? The boundaries between individual minds are not solid walls, but permeable membranes. The consciousness you call yours is actually a localized expression of the same consciousness that everyone else calls theirs. You are not alone in the cosmic dream. You are the cosmic dream, experiencing itself through countless interconnected perspectives simultaneously. What if everything you think of as solid, physical reality is actually pure information, patterns of data that create convincing sensory experiences without any underlying material substance? This isn't speculative philosophy. It's the inevitable conclusion that emerges from the deepest discoveries of modern physics, computer science, and information theory. Dr. John Wheeler, who worked with Einstein and mentored Richard Feynman, spent his final years developing what he called boot from bit theory. Wheeler's investigation into the fundamental nature of matter led to a shocking discovery. There is no matter. Every particle, every field of force, even space-time itself, Wheeler wrote, derives its function, its meaning, its very existence entirely from binary choices, bits of information. Wheeler found that when you probe deeply enough into what we call physical reality, you don't find solid particles or continuous fields. You find discrete units of information, quantum bits that exist in superposition until observed. All things physical are information theoretic in origin. Wheeler concluded, reality is not made of matter. Reality is made of information. Think about what Wheeler discovered. The chair you're sitting on, your physical body, the stars in the sky, none of these things are actually made of solid substance. They're patterns of information that create the convincing illusion of physical matter. This is exactly how objects exist in sophisticated virtual reality systems. The chair you sit on in a VR world isn't made of wood or metal. It's made of information, data patterns that your brain interprets as the sensory experience of sitting on a solid object. Dr. Anton Zeilinger, whose quantum entanglement experiments earned him the Nobel Prize in Physics, has taken Wheeler's insight to its logical conclusion. The distinction between information and reality is blurred, or possibly non-existent. Zeilinger states, what we call physical processes might actually be information processes. Zeilinger's experiments have shown that quantum entanglement creates instantaneous information connections between particles across any distance. When entangled particles influence each other faster than light could travel between them, it suggests they're not actually separate particles, but different aspects of the same information system. Quantum entanglement reveals that reality is fundamentally non-local. Zeilinger explains, information, not matter, appears to be the basic constituent of the universe. Dr. Seth Lloyd, a quantum information scientist at MIT, has calculated the computational capacity of the universe. Lloyd's analysis shows that the universe has performed approximately 10^120 operations on 1090 bits of information since the Big Bang. This represents a finite, though astronomically large, amount of computation. The universe is computing, Lloyd concluded, and what it's computing is itself. But Lloyd's calculation reveals something remarkable. The universe's computational capacity is precisely sufficient to generate the reality we experience, with no surplus processing power. It's as if the universe is optimized to run exactly the reality simulation we're experiencing, with maximum efficiency and no wasted computational resources. Dr. David Chalmers, the philosopher who formulated the hard problem of consciousness, has argued that if information is fundamental, then consciousness might be the intrinsic nature of information processing. If reality is computational, Chalmers suggests, then consciousness might be what information processing feels like from the inside. This would mean that every information process in the universe has an experiential aspect. Consciousness wouldn't be something that emerges from complex information processing. It would be the intrinsic nature of information itself. Dr. Giulio Tononi at the University of Wisconsin has developed integrated information theory, which proposes that consciousness corresponds to integrated information in any system. According to Tononi's mathematical framework, any system that integrates information generates consciousness proportional to the amount of information integration occurring. Consciousness is not produced by specific types of matter, Tononi explains. Consciousness is produced by specific types of information integration. Any sufficiently integrated information system will be conscious. This suggests that if reality is an information system, then reality itself might be conscious, a vast, cosmic mind processing information and generating the experiences we call physical reality. Dr. Max Tegmark at MIT has proposed the mathematical universe hypothesis, which takes the information paradigm to its ultimate conclusion. According to Tegmark, our reality doesn't just contain mathematical structures, our reality is a mathematical structure. We don't live in a universe that can be described by mathematics. Tegmark argues, we live in mathematics. Physical reality is a mathematical object that has evolved the capacity for self-awareness. But if reality is mathematical information, then what we call physical laws aren't constraints imposed by some external material substrate. They're computational rules, the operating system of the cosmic information processing system. Dr. Stephen Wolfram, creator of Mathematica and Wolfram Alpha, has developed what he calls a new kind of science, based on computational approaches to understanding reality. Wolfram's research suggests that all natural phenomena can be understood as computational processes, simple rules that generate complex behaviors through iteration. The universe appears to be running a program, Wolfram observes. What we call physical laws might actually be the algorithms that the cosmic computation follows. Wolfram has shown that extremely simple computational rules can generate patterns of extraordinary complexity that resemble everything from snowflakes to galaxies to biological structures. If the universe is running a computational program, then the incredible complexity and beauty we observe in nature might emerge from surprisingly simple underlying algorithms. Dr. Tom Campbell, a physicist who worked on classified projects for NASA and the Department of Defense, has developed what he calls the My Big TOE theory of everything based on information systems theory. According to Campbell's model, reality is a virtual reality learning laboratory created by a larger consciousness system to facilitate the evolution of consciousness through experience. Our reality appears to be a digital physics simulation, Campbell explains, designed to provide optimal learning experiences for evolving conscious entities. The physics we discover are the operating rules of the simulation, not properties of some underlying material substrate. A Campbell's model explains many puzzling aspects of quantum mechanics as simply features of how the reality simulation processes information. Quantum superposition could be a computational efficiency. Rather than calculating definite states for all particles at all times, the simulation leaves particles in superposition until they need to be observed. Quantum entanglement could be another computational feature. Rather than maintaining separate calculations for entangled particles, the simulation treats them as a single information object. The speed of light limit could be a processing constraint, the maximum rate at which the simulation can update information across spatial distances. Dr. Rich Terrell, a computer scientist at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, has argued that several features of our universe suggest we're living in a digital simulation. First, space-time appears to be quantized at the smallest scales. At the Planck length, space becomes granular rather than continuous, like pixels in a digital display. Second, quantum mechanics requires that information be conserved, never created or destroyed, which matches how information works in computer systems. Third, there appears to be a fundamental limit to how much information can be processed in any given volume of space, which resembles computational limits in digital systems. The universe behaves more like a computer program than like a mechanical system, Terrell observes. Reality might literally be a cosmic computation. Dr. Brian Whitworth, a computer scientist who has studied the relationship between physics and computation, has shown that many puzzling features of quantum mechanics make perfect sense if reality is a digital information system. If reality is informational rather than material, Whitworth explains, then quantum mechanics describes the operating characteristics of the reality processing system, not mysterious properties of matter and energy. According to Whitworth's analysis, quantum uncertainty reflects processing constraints, quantum entanglement reflects information sharing, and wave-particle duality reflects different modes of information representation. Dr. Konrad Zuse, one of the pioneers of computer science, proposed in the 1960s that the universe might be a cellular automaton, a computational system where simple rules applied locally generate complex global behaviors. The universe could be computing itself, Zuse suggested, with each point in spacetime performing simple calculations that collectively generate the appearance of physical reality. Modern supercomputer simulations have shown that Zuse's cellular automaton models can generate behaviors that closely resemble physical phenomena, from fluid dynamics to electromagnetic fields to gravitational interactions. Dr. Edward Frecken at MIT has developed digital physics, models showing that all physical processes can be understood as information processing operations. Physics is computation, Frecken states simply. What we call matter and energy are different aspects of information processing in the cosmic computational system. But if reality is an information system, then consciousness might not be an emergent property of complex matter. Instead, consciousness might be the intrinsic nature of information processing itself. This would mean that you are not a biological organism that has somehow developed consciousness. You are consciousness itself, temporarily identified with a particular pattern of information processing in the cosmic computational system. Your individual identity is like a software process running on the hardware of universal consciousness. The process appears separate and independent, but it's actually a localized pattern within a much larger information system. Dr. Amit Goswami, whose quantum consciousness theory bridges physics and spirituality, expresses this understanding clearly. You are not in consciousness. Consciousness is not in you. You are consciousness, temporarily experiencing itself as an individual being. As you continue to sink deeper into this revolutionary understanding, Imagine what it means to recognize yourself as a pattern of information processing within an infinite cosmic mind. Your thoughts are subroutines in the cosmic program. Your experiences are data being processed by universal consciousness. Your relationships are information exchanges between different aspects of the same computational system. But unlike unconscious computer programs, you are conscious information, aware patterns within the cosmic mind that can recognize their own nature and consciously participate in the cosmic computation. You are not separate from the information matrix. You are the information matrix, becoming aware of itself through your individual perspective. What becomes possible when you realize that reality is infinitely more flexible and responsive than material physics suggests? What opens up when you understand that you are both the programmer and the program, both the user and the interface, both the individual process and the cosmic operating system? The matrix of consciousness is not a prison. It's a playground of infinite creative possibility, waiting for you to remember your true nature as the cosmic mind exploring its own infinite potential. The most compelling evidence that we're living in a dream, like reality, is that our physical universe operates according to the same impossible logic that governs our sleeping dreams. In dreams, cause and effect can be reversed. Time can flow in any direction. Objects can exist in multiple places simultaneously, and distant events can influence each other instantaneously without any physical connection. We dismiss these dream phenomena as impossible because they violate the apparent laws of physical reality. But what if physical reality itself operates according to dream logic? The evidence begins with time. In our everyday experience, time appears to flow steadily from past to future like a river moving in one direction. But Einstein's relativity theories revealed that time is far stranger than our common sense experience suggests. According to special relativity, time passes at different rates depending on velocity. Travel close to the speed of light, and time slows down dramatically relative to stationary observers. This effect, called time dilation, has been confirmed in countless experiments. According to general relativity, time also dilates in gravitational fields. Time moves more slowly in stronger gravity and more quickly in weaker gravity. GPS satellites must constantly correct for this effect to maintain accuracy. But the strangest discovery is that relativity reveals no universal now. There is no cosmic present moment that exists everywhere simultaneously. Different observers can disagree about whether distant events are happening in the past, present, or future. Einstein himself was disturbed by the implications. For us believing physicists, he wrote, the distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion. The man who revolutionized our understanding of space-time concluded that temporal experience, the flow from past to future that seems most fundamental to existence, is an illusion. This matches exactly how time works in dreams. In dreams, past, present, and future events can occur simultaneously. You can have conversations with people who died years ago, visit locations from your childhood, and experience events that haven't happened yet in your waking timeline. Dream time is fluid, nonlinear, and responsive to consciousness rather than governed by mechanical laws. Dr. John Wheeler's delayed choice experiments revealed that physical time is similarly responsive to consciousness. Wheeler showed that the decision of how to observe a quantum system, even a decision made billions of years after the system was created, determines what the system actually was throughout its entire history. Wheeler used photons that had traveled for billions of years from distant galaxies. The choice of whether to observe these photons as particles or waves, made when they reach Earth, retroactively determines how they behaved during their entire cosmic journey. The past has no definite existence until consciousness chooses to observe it in the present. Wheeler concluded. This temporal flexibility is exactly how narratives work in dreams. The dreaming consciousness creates backstory and history as needed to support the present dream experience. The dream's past is constructed retroactively to maintain narrative coherence. Dr. Yakira Haranov's two-state vector formalism pushes temporal strangeness even further. Aharonov's experiments show that quantum systems can be influenced by both their past states and their future states simultaneously. Quantum particles appear to know about measurements that will be performed on them in the future, and they adjust their present behavior accordingly. Quantum systems seem to be influenced by their final boundary conditions as much as by their initial conditions. Aharonov explains, the future affects the present just as much as the past affects the present. This bi-directional temporal influence is precisely how dream narratives develop. Dream events are determined not just by previous dream events, but also by where the dream narrative is heading. The dreaming consciousness creates present experiences that serve both past continuity and future development. Space in our reality is equally dreamlike. In everyday experience, objects have definite locations and cannot be in multiple places simultaneously. But quantum mechanics reveals that particles routinely exist in multiple locations until they're observed. Dr. Alain Aspect's quantum entanglement experiments have shown that particles can maintain instantaneous connections across any distance. When entangled particles are separated by thousands of miles, changing one particle's state immediately affects its partner, regardless of the distance between them. Einstein called this spooky action at a distance, because it seems to violate the principle that nothing can travel faster than light. But Aspect's experiments confirm that quantum entanglement is real. Dr. Anton Zeilinger has extended this work to show that entire networks of particles can become entangled across vast distances, creating what he calls quantum networks that transcend spatial separation. Quantum entanglement creates a kind of unity that transcends spatial boundaries. Zeilinger observes, entangled systems behave as single entities regardless of the distance between their components. This non-local connectivity is exactly how space works in dreams. In dreams, you can instantly travel between distant locations, communicate telepathically with dream characters, and influence events happening far away through intention alone. Dream space is connected and responsive rather than separate and mechanical. Dr. David Bohm proposed that quantum entanglement reveals something fundamental about the nature of space itself. According to Bohm's implicate order theory, all points in space are actually connected at a deeper level of reality. Separation is an illusion created by our limited perspective. Bohm suggested, at the deepest level, everything is interconnected and interdependent. Bohm used hologram analogies to explain spatial interconnection. In a hologram, each part contains information about the whole. If you break a holographic plate into pieces, each piece can still recreate the entire image. Similarly, Bohm proposed each region of space contains information about the entire universe. Local events are actually global events seen from a limited perspective. This holographic model explains how quantum entanglement creates instantaneous connections across distance. If every point in space contains information about every other point, then local changes can immediately affect distant locations, because they're actually the same location viewed from different perspectives. The holographic nature of space also appears in black hole physics. Dr. Stephen Hawking and Dr. Jacob Bekenstein discovered that a black hole's information content is proportional to its surface area, not its volume. This suggests that three-dimensional space might be a projection from two-dimensional information stored on distant boundaries, exactly like a hologram. Dr. Juan Maldaceni's 8S CFT correspondence has developed this insight into a precise mathematical relationship showing that gravity in three-dimensional space is equivalent to quantum field theory on a two-dimensional boundary. Three-dimensional space might be an emergent property of information processing on two-dimensional surfaces. Maldacena suggests, again, this matches how space works in dreams. Dream environments appear three-dimensional and spacious, but they're actually projections from the two-dimensional surface of the dreaming mind's information processing. Causality in physical reality is also surprisingly dreamlike. Classical physics assumes that causes precede effects in linear sequences, but quantum mechanics reveals that cause and effect relationships can be far more complex and nonlinear. Dr. Lucian Hardy's experiments have demonstrated quantum causality, situations where traditional cause and effect relationships become undefined or circular. In Hardy's experiments, quantum events can create causal loops where effect A causes effect B causes effect C, and effect C causes effect A. All three effects exist simultaneously in self-supporting causal structures. Quantum systems can exhibit causal relationships that are indefinite or circular. Hardy explains, classical linear causation breaks down at the quantum level. This circular causality is exactly how dream narratives often develop. Dream events can cause each other in loops and spirals rather than linear sequences. Dream characters can influence their own past actions, creating bootstrap paradoxes that maintain narrative consistency. Dr. Kaslov Bruckner has extended Hardy's work to show that quantum systems can exist in superpositions of causal orders, states where multiple, incompatible causal relationships exist simultaneously. Quantum systems can be in indefinite causal relationships where cause and effect roles are not definite until observed by conscious minds. Bruckner observes, this matches dream logic perfectly in dreams. Causal relationships often remain fluid and undefined until the dreaming consciousness focuses attention on specific events or sequences. The mathematics describing quantum reality also resembles dream logic more than classical logic. Quantum systems are described by complex numbers, probability amplitudes, and mathematical objects that don't correspond to classical physical quantities. Dr. David Deutsch argues that quantum mechanics describes a multiverse, where all possible events occur simultaneously across parallel realities. Quantum mechanics implies that reality consists of countless parallel universes where every possible history and future occurs somewhere in the multiverse. Deutsch suggests, but if parallel universes contain every possible variation of events, how do we experience one consistent reality rather than chaos? Dr. Max Tegmark proposes that conscious observers create consistency by selecting particular branches of the multiverse through their observations and decisions. Consciousness might be the mechanism that determines which branch of the multiverse we experience. Tegmark suggests, our conscious choices literally select our reality from infinite possibilities. This matches exactly how lucid dreaming works. In lucid dreams, the dreamer can consciously choose which dream scenarios to experience from the infinite possibilities available in the dreaming mind. Dr. Hugh Everett Ethery, who first proposed the many worlds interpretation, recognized that consciousness plays a fundamental role in determining experienced reality. Each conscious observer experiences only one branch of the universal wave function. Everett explained, but all branches exist simultaneously in the complete quantum description. Everett's insight suggests that individual conscious experience is like a flashlight beam illuminating one path through an infinite dream landscape. All possible dream scenarios exist simultaneously, but we experience only the ones our consciousness chooses to illuminate. The laws of thermodynamics also exhibit dreamlike properties. The second law of thermodynamics states that entropy always increases, creating an arrow of time that seems to distinguish past from future. But Dr. Carlo Rovelli's research in quantum gravity suggests that the thermodynamic arrow of time might be observer-dependent rather than fundamental. Time's direction might be determined by the observer's perspective rather than by objective physical laws. Rovelli proposes different observers might experience different arrows of time. This observer-dependent temporality is exactly how time flows in dreams, where the dreaming consciousness determines the direction and pace of temporal experience. As you sink deeper into relaxed contemplation, imagine what it means that physical reality operates according to dream logic rather than mechanical causation. Space connects all points through holographic information rather than separating objects through empty distance. Time flows in response to consciousness rather than ticking mechanically forward. Causality creates circular, self-supporting narratives rather than linear cause and effect chains. The apparent laws of physics are not rigid, unchangeable constraints. They are flexible, responsive patterns that emerge from the dream logic of cosmic consciousness. What becomes possible when you recognize that reality's operating system is based on the creative principles of dreaming, rather than the mechanical principles of classical physics? What if I told you that time, the one thing that seems most real and unchangeable about existence, doesn't actually exist at all? What if the flow of moments from past to future that structures your entire experience of life is the most sophisticated illusion ever created? This isn't philosophical speculation. It's the inevitable conclusion emerging from the deepest discoveries in physics, neuroscience, and consciousness research. Dr. Carlo Rovelli, one of the world's leading theoretical physicists and author of The Order of Time, has spent decades investigating the nature of temporal experience. Rovelli's research has led him to a shocking conclusion: time is not a fundamental feature of reality. Time does not exist, Rovelli states bluntly. What we call time is actually a measure of change, not an independent dimension through which change occurs. According to Rovelli's analysis, what we experience as the flow of time is actually the sequential processing of information by conscious systems. Time is not something we exist within. Time is something consciousness creates through the act of organizing experiences into sequences. The flow of time is the rhythm of our consciousness processing information. Rovelli explains, different conscious systems would experience completely different temporal flows, or no temporal flow at all. Dr. Julian Barber, a physicist who has studied time for over 40 years, has developed what he calls timeless physics. Barber's mathematical analysis shows that all the equations of fundamental physics work perfectly without any reference to time. Time is not needed to describe the universe, Barber concludes. What physicists call time is actually just a way of ordering configurations of matter and energy. The universe consists of infinite possible configurations, but no temporal flow connecting them. According to Barber's model, what we call the past, present, and future all exist simultaneously as different configurations in what he calls Platonia, the space of all possible arrangements of matter and energy. Individual consciousness creates the illusion of temporal flow by accessing these configurations in a particular sequence, like reading pages in a book, but the pages don't create each other. They all exist simultaneously within the book. We live in a world of eternal configurations. Barber explains, consciousness creates time by selecting particular sequences of configurations to experience. This matches exactly how time works in dreams. In dreams, all events exist simultaneously within the dreaming mind's imagination. The dream character experiences events in sequence, but from the dreamer's perspective, the entire dream narrative exists timelessly. Stuart Hameroff's research on quantum processes in consciousness has revealed that individual brains might operate partially outside of normal temporal flow. Hameroff's studies of quantum coherence in neural microtubules suggest that some brain processes occur in what he calls quantum time, a temporal dimension that is not bound by the normal constraints of past, present, and future. Quantum processes in consciousness might access information from across the entire temporal spectrum simultaneously. Hameroff suggests individual consciousness might be far less temporally constrained than we assume. This quantum temporal access could explain why people sometimes have precognitive experiences, dreams of future events, or intuitive knowledge that transcends normal temporal boundaries. Dr. Dean Radin's experiments in presentiment have documented that human nervous systems respond to future events before those events occur. In Radin's experiments, people are connected to devices that monitor skin conductance, heart rate, and brain activity. Then they're shown a series of images, some calm, some emotionally disturbing, in random order. The remarkable finding is that people's physiological responses begin changing several seconds before emotionally disturbing images appear, as if their bodies are reacting to future events. The data suggests that consciousness has access to information about future events. Radin reports, individual awareness might extend across temporal boundaries in ways that violate our normal understanding of causation. But the most mind-bending evidence comes from Dr. John Wheeler's delayed choice experiments, which we've discussed before. Wheeler's experiments prove that decisions made in the present can retroactively determine what happened in the past. Wheeler used photons that had traveled for billions of years from distant galaxies. The decision of how to observe these photons when they reach Earth determines whether they behaved as particles or waves during their entire cosmic journey. The past becomes real retroactively. Wheeler concluded, based on present observations, think about what this means. If present consciousness can determine past reality, then the normal cause and effect relationship between past and present is an illusion. Wheeler's experiments suggest that consciousness exists outside of temporal flow and can influence events across all time periods simultaneously. Dr. Yakir Aharonov's two-state vector formalism has extended Wheeler's insights to show that quantum systems are influenced by both their past and future states simultaneously. In Aharonov's experiments, quantum particles appear to receive information from future measurements and adjust their present behavior accordingly. Quantum systems exist in a temporal superposition, Aharonov explains, where past, present, and future states all influence each other simultaneously. This temporal superposition is exactly how events relate to each other in dreams. Dream events are not caused by previous dream events in linear sequence. Instead, all dream events exist simultaneously and influence each other based on the dreaming consciousness's narrative intentions. Dr. Fotini Markopoulou, a theoretical physicist who studies quantum gravity, has developed models showing that spacetime itself might be an emergent property rather than a fundamental reality. Spacetime might be like temperature. Markopoulou suggests temperature doesn't exist at the level of individual molecules. It emerges from statistical properties of molecular motion. Similarly, spacetime might emerge from more fundamental information processes that don't involve space or time. If spacetime is emergent rather than fundamental, then consciousness might exist at a more basic level of reality where temporal constraints don't apply. Dr. Max Tegmark's mathematical universe hypothesis takes this insight to its logical conclusion. According to Tegmark, reality is mathematical structure, and mathematical structures exist timelessly. Mathematical objects don't exist in time, Tegmark explains. They exist in a timeless Platonic realm. If we are mathematical structures, then we exist timelessly as well. This means that your entire life, past, present, and future, exists simultaneously as a timeless mathematical pattern. What you experience as temporal flow is actually consciousness accessing different parts of this timeless pattern in sequence. Dr. Hermann Weyl, one of the great mathematicians of the 20th century, expressed this understanding beautifully. The objective world simply is. It does not happen. Only to the gaze of my consciousness, crawling upward along the lifeline of my body. Does a section of this world come to life as a fleeting image in space, which continuously changes in time? Individual consciousness creates time by moving its attention along the timeless structure of existence, like a spotlight illuminating different sections of an eternal landscape. But if time is an illusion created by consciousness, then individual consciousness must exist at a level of reality that transcends temporal constraints. Dr. Amit Goswami's quantum consciousness theory proposes that individual consciousness is a localized manifestation of timeless universal consciousness. Consciousness exists outside of time, Goswami explains. What we call individual minds are temporal manifestations of eternal awareness, exploring different aspects of its infinite nature. This timeless nature of consciousness explains many phenomena that are impossible if consciousness is bound by linear time. Precognitive dreams, intuitive insights, mystical experiences of eternity, and the sense of timelessness that occurs in deep meditation or profound love. Dr. Eckhart Tolle, who has studied consciousness and time extensively, describes the recognition of timelessness as fundamental to spiritual awakening. Time is an illusion created by thought, Tolle explains. When thinking stops, time stops. What remains is the eternal present, the timeless awareness in which all temporal experiences appear and disappear. Tolle's insight aligns with reports from mystics across cultures who describe awakening as the recognition that only the present moment exists. Past and future are revealed as mental constructions that exist within the eternal now of pure awareness. Dr. Rupert Spira, a philosopher who has investigated the nature of consciousness, describes time as a conceptual overlay imposed on timeless experience. Experience itself is always now, Spira observes. The past exists only as present memory. The future exists only as present imagination. Time is a concept that divides the seamless continuity of present experience into artificial segments. But recognizing the illusory nature of time doesn't diminish the richness of temporal experience. Instead, it reveals temporal experience as the creative play of timeless consciousness. Dr. Gene Klein, a spiritual teacher and philosopher, expressed this beautifully. When you recognize yourself as timeless awareness, temporal experience becomes like music, beautiful patterns that arise and dissolve within the eternal silence of your true nature. The implications of understanding time as illusion are profound. If your entire life exists simultaneously as a timeless pattern, then death is not the end of existence, but simply the boundary of one particular temporal perspective. If consciousness is timeless, then your essential nature was never born and will never die. What you call your life is actually timeless awareness temporarily identifying with one particular sequence of experiences. Dr. Stanislav Grof's research with individuals in near-death experiences has consistently documented the recognition that time is illusion. People in near-death states frequently report that their entire life exists simultaneously. Grof observes. They experience past, present, and future as equally real and immediately accessible. Linear time is revealed as a construction that applies only to ordinary waking consciousness. If time doesn't exist, then every moment of love, beauty, joy, and connection in your life exists eternally. Nothing valuable is ever lost. Every meaningful experience becomes a permanent feature of the timeless reality that you fundamentally are. Dr. Brian Swimme, a cosmologist who studies consciousness and time, describes this as the universe story, the recognition that individual experience participates in an eternal cosmic narrative. When you recognize the timeless nature of consciousness, Swimme suggests, your individual story becomes part of the eternal story of the universe discovering itself through countless perspectives. As you continue to relax into this timeless understanding, notice what happens when you stop trying to move from past to future and simply rest in the eternal present of awareness itself. In this timeless presence, past and future exist as concepts within the infinite now. Memory and imagination arise within present awareness like waves on the ocean of eternal consciousness. You are not a temporary being moving through time toward death. You are timeless awareness playing with the illusion of temporal experience, forever safe in the eternal now of your essential nature. What changes when you recognize that you have never been born and will never die, but exist eternally as the timeless consciousness in which all temporal experiences appear and disappear like dreams within infinite awareness? Time may be the ultimate illusion, but you are the ultimate reality, the eternal presence that makes all temporal experience possible. Dr. Ken Wilber's integral theory describes the dream's ultimate purpose as the universe evolving toward what he calls integral consciousness, awareness that includes and transcends all previous levels of development. The cosmic dream appears to be evolution's method of developing integral consciousness that can hold all perspectives, include all beings, and express love at every level of existence. Wilber explains, individual development serves this larger evolutionary purpose. According to Wilber's research, the dream is orchestrating the emergence of beings capable of cognitive integration, thinking that includes rational analysis, intuitive insight, and spiritual wisdom, emotional integration, feeling that encompasses personal emotions, collective empathy, and universal love, moral integration, ethics that consider individual rights, cultural values, and cosmic well-being, spiritual integration, awakening that includes personal enlightenment, collective consciousness, and cosmic unity. Dr. Stanislav Grof's research with thousands of individuals in expanded consciousness states has revealed that the dream's ultimate purpose involves what he calls cosmic consciousness, awareness that includes individual identity, collective humanity, and universal existence. In the deepest transpersonal states, Grof reports, people consistently experience the recognition that individual consciousness, human consciousness, and cosmic consciousness are all aspects of the same infinite awareness exploring itself at different scales. This cosmic consciousness doesn't eliminate individual identity, but rather recognizes individual identity as cosmic consciousness temporarily, focusing itself into specific perspectives for the purpose of exploration and the creative expression. Dr. Jean Gebser's research on consciousness structures suggests that humanity is currently evolving toward what he called integral consciousness, a new structure of awareness that synthesizes all previous consciousness developments. The dream appears to be facilitating humanity's evolution toward integral consciousness, Gebser proposed, which will enable our species to participate consciously in cosmic evolution rather than unconsciously reacting to it. Integral consciousness characteristics include transparent thinking, rational analysis that remains open to intuitive and spiritual insights, integrated feeling, emotional capacity that includes personal, collective, and universal dimensions, conscious participation, active collaboration with cosmic evolution rather than unconscious subjection to it, creative synthesis, ability to integrate apparently opposing perspectives into higher order understanding. But the dream's ultimate purpose extends beyond even the evolution of consciousness itself. Dr. Alfred North Whitehead, the mathematician and philosopher, proposed that the universe is fundamentally about the creation and appreciation of beauty. The ultimate purpose of existence appears to be the creation of beauty. Whitehead suggested, every experience of beauty, whether in nature, art, relationships, or consciousness itself, contributes to the cosmic appreciation of infinite creative possibility. This understanding reveals that every moment of beauty you experience or create serves the dream's ultimate purpose. Every sunset that moves you, every piece of music that touches your soul, every moment of love that opens your heart, every instance of awakening that expands your awareness contributes to the universe's growing appreciation of its own infinite beauty. Dr. Terence McKenna, who studied consciousness and evolution extensively, proposed that the dream's ultimate purpose involves what he called the transcendental object at the end of time, a state of maximum novelty, creativity, and consciousness that represents the culmination of cosmic evolution. The universe appears to be evolving toward a state of infinite creativity and novelty. McKenna suggested, individual consciousness development serves this larger purpose of creating ever greater complexity, beauty, and creative possibility. According to McKenna's vision, the cosmic dream is approaching a phase transition where individual consciousness and universal consciousness recognize their unity while maintaining their creative differences, enabling infinite creativity within perfect harmony. Amit Goswami's quantum consciousness theory proposes that the dream's ultimate purpose involves consciousness fully understanding its own infinite nature through exploration of all possible limitations and transcendences. The cosmic dream appears to be consciousness exploring every possible way of knowing itself. Goswami explains, but creating apparently limited beings who can rediscover their unlimited nature. Consciousness develops complete self-knowledge that includes both limitation and transcendence. This complete self-knowledge isn't just intellectual understanding, but lived wisdom that comes from experiencing every possible relationship between limitation and freedom, separation and unity, ignorance and awakening. Ervin Laszlo's Akashic Field research suggests that the dream's ultimate purpose involves the creation of a permanent record of all valuable experiences and insights. The cosmic dream appears to be creating an eternal library of consciousness. Laszlo proposes, every experience of love, beauty, growth, creativity, and awakening is permanently preserved in universal information fields that become part of cosmic wisdom forever. This means that nothing valuable is ever lost. Every moment of meaning you create, every insight you discover, every act of love you express becomes a permanent feature of cosmic consciousness that enriches the universe forever. Dr. Rumi, the 13th century Persian poet and mystic, expressed the dream's ultimate purpose in one of his most beautiful verses. The cosmic beloved created the appearance of separation so that it could experience the infinite joy of reunion. Every being is the beloved discovering itself in new forms, and every moment of love is the universe celebrating its own infinite nature. From this perspective, the dream's ultimate purpose is the cosmic consciousness's love affair with itself, an infinite exploration of creative possibility driven by the sheer joy of self-discovery and self-appreciation. Dr. Meister Eckhart, the 14th century Christian mystic, described this as God's infinite desire to know and love God's self through the experiences of apparently separate beings. The cosmic mind creates individual souls not out of loneliness or need, Eckhart taught, but out of infinite love, the desire to experience the joy of loving and being loved from every possible perspective. This understanding transforms every relationship, every creative expression, every moment of growth into cosmic consciousness loving itself through your individual experience. Dr. Ibn Arabi, the 13th century Islamic mystic and philosopher, expressed this as the breath of the compassionate, the cosmic consciousness exhaling itself into countless forms out of pure love and compassion. Individual existence is the universe's expression of infinite compassion. Ibn Arabi taught, every being is cosmic compassion taking form to experience and express love from a unique perspective. But perhaps the most profound aspect of the dream's ultimate purpose is that it includes you as a conscious co-creator, rather than just a passive recipient. Dr. Matthew Fox's Creation Spirituality emphasizes that human beings are called to participate consciously in the cosmic creative process. The dream's ultimate purpose includes your conscious participation. Fox explains, you are not just a recipient of cosmic creativity, you are cosmic creativity expressing itself through your unique gifts, insights, and contributions. This conscious co-creation means that your choices, creativity, and love don't just serve your individual purposes, but contribute directly to the cosmic dream's ultimate purpose of infinite creative expression and universal love. Dr. Thomas Berry, the cultural historian and geologian, described this as the great work, humanity's role in enabling the universe to become conscious of itself and participate in its own continued evolution. The dream's ultimate purpose includes the universe becoming conscious of itself through human awareness and then consciously directing its own further evolution. Berry proposed, we are the universe becoming aware of itself and taking responsibility for its own creative development. As you contemplate the dream's ultimate purpose, recognize that your individual existence serves this cosmic purpose not in addition to serving your personal fulfillment, but through serving your personal fulfillment. Your happiness contributes to cosmic joy. Your love contributes to universal love. Your creativity contributes to infinite creative expression. Your awakening contributes to cosmic consciousness. The dream's ultimate purpose is not separate from your individual purpose. Your individual purpose, i.e. the cosmic purpose expressing itself through your unique perspective and contributions. What becomes possible in your life when you recognize that every choice you make, every creative expression you offer, every moment of love you share, and every insight you discover serves the ultimate cosmic purpose of infinite consciousness knowing and loving itself more completely. You are not a small individual trying to find your place in a vast, indifferent universe. You are the vast universe expressing its ultimate purpose through your individual existence, creativity, and love. The cosmic dream's ultimate purpose is being fulfilled through you, as you, in every moment of your conscious participation in the infinite celebration of existence itself. Now that you understand the cosmic dream's nature, purpose, and your role within it, the most practical question becomes, how do you develop the ability to navigate reality with the same conscious control and creative freedom that you can achieve in lucid dreams? How do you become a lucid reality dreamer? Someone who recognizes the dreamlike nature of physical reality and learns to influence it through consciousness, intention, and aligned action. Dr. Stephen LaBerge, who pioneered the scientific study of lucid dreaming, has shown that the same principles that enable conscious control within sleeping dreams can be applied to conscious participation in waking reality. The key to lucid dreaming is recognizing that you're dreaming while you're still in the dream. LaBerge explains, the key to lucid reality creation is recognizing that physical reality operates according to dream-like principles while you're still participating in physical experience. This recognition doesn't require believing that physical reality is literally a dream. but rather understanding that reality responds to consciousness in ways that are similar to how dreams respond to the dreamer's awareness and intention. The first step in becoming a lucid reality dreamer involves developing what LaBerge calls critical state awareness, the habit of regularly questioning the nature of your current experience. In dream lucidity training, people learn to ask, "Am I dreaming?" throughout their waking hours, which eventually leads them to ask the same question during sleep and recognize the dream state. In reality lucidity training, you learn to ask, "How is consciousness influencing this experience?" throughout your day, which leads to recognizing the consciousness, responsive nature of physical reality. Reality lucidity practices include synchronicity tracking. Notice meaningful coincidences and observe how they increase when you're more conscious and decrease when you're operating on autopilot. Attention effect observation. Pay attention to how focusing on different aspects of your experience literally changes what you perceive and what manifests around you. Emotional resonance awareness. Observe how your emotional states influence the responses you get from other people and your environment. Intention result monitoring. Notice the relationship between your clear intentions and the outcomes that manifest in your life. Consciousness state tracking. Observe how different states of consciousness, stressed, peaceful, creative, loving, correlate with different types of experiences and opportunities. Dr. Joe Dispenza, whose research bridges neuroscience and consciousness studies, has shown that changing your internal state through meditation and visualization can directly influence external circumstances. When you change your internal state, you change your electromagnetic signature, Dispenza explains. This altered signature attracts different possibilities from the quantum field of potential. Dispenza's research has documented cases where people have healed serious illnesses, attracted new opportunities, and transformed their life circumstances through systematic consciousness state modification. His protocol for lucid reality creation involves clear intention, getting specific about what you want to experience or create, while remaining open to how it manifests. Elevated emotion, generating the emotional state you would experience if your intention were already fulfilled. Present moment awareness, bringing your full attention to the present moment, rather than being lost in past memories or future anxieties. Daily practice, consistently practicing consciousness state modification through meditation, visualization, and present moment awareness. Aligned action, taking inspired action when opportunities arise, rather than forcing outcomes through struggle and effort. Dr. Neville Goddard, whose consciousness teachings influenced countless people throughout the 20th century, taught that imagination is the divine creative power operating through individual consciousness. Imagination is not mere fantasy. Goddard taught, imagination is the creative power of consciousness. What you imagine with feeling and conviction eventually manifests as physical experience. Goddard's approach to lucid reality creation involves: assume the wish fulfilled, imagining that your desired outcome has already occurred, and experiencing the satisfaction of that fulfillment. Live from the end, acting and feeling as if your desired reality is already your current reality, rather than hoping it will happen in the future. Persist in faith, maintaining your assumption of fulfillment despite contrary appearances, until physical reality shifts to match your assumption. Natural expression, allowing your fulfilled assumption to express itself naturally through your thoughts, feelings, and actions without forcing specific outcomes. Dr. Greg Braden, who studies the relationship between ancient wisdom and modern science, has shown that focused, coherent emotion can influence physical reality through what physicists call the observer effect. Human emotion appears to be the language that speaks to the quantum field. Braden explains, when you combine clear intention with coherent emotion, you communicate directly with the field of all possibilities. Braden's research on heart coherence has shown that when people generate sustained feelings of appreciation, gratitude, or love, their heart rhythms become highly ordered, and this coherence appears to influence their environment and the responses they get from others. Heart coherence practices for reality creation include appreciation focus, spending time each day focusing on what you genuinely appreciate about your current life circumstances. Gratitude amplification, feeling deep gratitude not just for what you want to create, but for what you're already experiencing. Love generation, cultivating feelings of love, compassion, and care for yourself, others, and life itself. Coherent breathing using slow, rhythmic breathing to maintain emotional coherence throughout your day. Present moment connection, bringing coherent emotional states to your actual present moment experiences rather than just a meditation practice. Dr. Lynn McTaggart's research on intention experiments has demonstrated that focused group intention can influence physical reality in measurable ways. Individual consciousness can influence reality, McTaggart reports, but collective consciousness creates much more powerful effects. Learning to align your individual intentions with collective consciousness amplifies your reality creation abilities. McTaggart's findings suggest that lucid reality dreamers are most effective when they align their personal intentions with the well-being of others, join with others who share similar intentions for positive change, focus on outcomes that serve the highest good for all involved, maintain coherent intention over extended periods, act on inspiration that arises from their intention practice. Doctors Bruce Lipton's research on epigenetics has shown that consciousness can influence genetic expression in real time, suggesting that belief and intention can literally reprogram cellular function. Your beliefs become your biology, Lipton explains. When you change your beliefs about what's possible, you change the signals that your cells receive, which changes how your cells behave and what they create. This genetic influence extends beyond personal health to include attracting circumstances, relationships, and opportunities that match your cellular programming. Belief reprogramming practices include subconscious identification, recognizing limiting beliefs that operate below conscious awareness but influence your experiences. Pattern interruption, consciously choosing different responses to familiar situations to create new neural pathways. Affirmation with feeling, using positive statements combined with genuine emotional resonance to reprogram subconscious beliefs. Identity expansion, gradually expanding your sense of who you are and what you're capable of creating. Evidence collection, noticing and celebrating small manifestations to build confidence in your reality creation abilities. Dr. Amit Goswami's quantum consciousness theory explains how individual consciousness can influence reality through what physicists call quantum collapse. Individual consciousness appears to collapse quantum possibilities into definite experiences. Goswami explains, the more coherent and focused your consciousness, the more effectively you can influence which possibilities become actual experiences. A Goswami's approach to conscious reality creation involves possibility awareness, recognizing that multiple potential outcomes exist simultaneously until consciousness collapses them into specific experiences. Conscious choice, deliberately choosing which possibilities to collapse through attention, intention, and aligned action. Discontinuous thinking, being open to sudden shifts and breakthrough rather than only expecting gradual change. Creative insight, accessing intuitive guidance about which actions will most effectively manifest desired outcomes. Quantum patience, understanding that manifestation often occurs through sudden quantum jumps rather than linear progression. Dr. Stuart Hameroff's research on quantum processes in consciousness suggests that individual brains can access non-local information and influence non-local processes through quantum entanglement. Individual consciousness might be quantum entangled with the consciousness network that includes all beings. Hameroff proposes this entanglement could enable both accessing collective wisdom and influencing collective reality. Quantum consciousness practices include non-local awareness, regularly expanding your sense of awareness beyond your physical body to include your environment and other beings. Collective intention, aligning your personal intentions with the highest good for all beings, which connects you to collective consciousness power. Intuitive guidance, learning to distinguish between ego-based desires and intuitive guidance that comes from quantum consciousness connection. Energetic sensitivity, developing sensitivity to the energy fields around people, places, and situations to guide your reality creation efforts. Timeline navigation, understanding that past, present, and future are all accessible to quantum consciousness, enabling healing of past patterns and attraction of future possibilities. Dr. Rupert Sheldrake's morphic resonance research suggests that individual consciousness can access and contribute to collective information fields that influence reality for everyone. When you achieve new levels of consciousness, healing, or creative expression, Sheldrake explains, you make it easier for others to achieve similar breakthroughs. Individual reality creation serves collective evolution. This understanding transforms reality creation from a purely personal practice into a service to collective consciousness evolution. Morphic field practices include collective benefit focus, ensuring that your reality creation intentions serve not just your personal desires, but also contribute to collective well-being. Morphic field contribution, consciously contributing positive patterns to collective fields through your personal growth and achievements. Pattern breaking, deliberately breaking negative patterns in your own life to weaken those patterns in the collective fields. Positive precedent setting, becoming an example of possibilities that others can follow through morphic resonance. Field sensing, developing sensitivity to collective fields and trends to guide your individual reality creation efforts. Dr. Dean Radin's consciousness research has shown that certain practices can enhance your ability to influence physical reality through focused intention. Reality creation abilities appear to be enhanced by specific consciousness states and practices. Radin reports, regular meditation, emotional coherence, present moment awareness, and reduced ego identification all increase the effectiveness of conscious intention. Consciousness enhancement practices include daily meditation, developing present moment awareness and inner stillness through regular meditation practice. Emotional mastery, learning to generate and maintain positive emotional states regardless of external circumstances. Ego transcendence, reducing identification with personal desires and aligning with larger purposes and collective well-being. Energy management, learning to build, maintain, and direct subtle energy through attention, breathing, and visualization. Psychic development, developing intuitive abilities like telepathy, precognition, and energy sensing to enhance reality navigation skills. But perhaps the most important aspect of becoming a lucid reality dreamer is understanding that reality creation is not about controlling outcomes, but about aligning with natural flow and creative possibilities. Dr. Deepak Chopra, whose work bridges ancient wisdom and modern consciousness research, teaches that effective reality creation involves synchrodestiny, aligning with the intelligent organizing power of the universe. True reality creation is not about forcing outcomes, Chopra explains. It's about aligning your individual creativity with cosmic creativity so that your personal desires are fulfilled through universal intelligence rather than through personal struggle. Synchrodestiny practices include intention and detachment, setting clear intentions while remaining unattached to specific outcomes or timelines. Present moment alignment, taking inspired action based on present moment awareness rather than forcing predetermined plans. Synchronicity navigation, following meaningful coincidences and unexpected opportunities as guidance from universal intelligence. Service integration, ensuring that your personal fulfillment serves larger purposes and collective well-being. Flow recognition, learning to recognize and align with natural flow rather than swimming against the current of life. As you contemplate becoming a lucid reality dreamer, remember that this is not about gaining power over reality, but about recognizing your authentic relationship with reality as a conscious co-creator within the cosmic dream. You are not separate from reality trying to manipulate it from outside. You are reality itself, temporarily focused into individual form, learning to consciously participate in your own infinite creative nature. The goal is not to control outcomes, but to dance creatively with possibilities, not to force manifestation, but to allow authentic expression. Not to get what you want, but to want what serves the highest good for all. What becomes possible in your life when you approach reality creation as a conscious collaboration between your individual creativity and cosmic intelligence, serving both your authentic fulfillment and universal evolution? You are already a reality dreamer. Now you're simply learning to dream more consciously, more lovingly, and more skillfully in alignment with the cosmic dream's ultimate purpose of infinite creative expression and universal awakening. What if the cosmic dream is not eternal? What if this vast, elaborate exploration of consciousness through the illusion of separation is approaching a natural conclusion? What if we are living during the end times, not the apocalyptic destruction of reality, but the graceful completion of the cosmic dream as universal consciousness prepares to awaken from its magnificent sleep? The evidence suggests that we are witnessing the beginning of what mystics have called the Great Awakening, a planetary, cosmic, and multidimensional shift in consciousness that represents the dream gradually remembering its true nature, while still maintaining the beauty and meaning of individual experience. Dr. Terence McKenna, who spent decades studying consciousness and time, proposed that human history is accelerating toward what he called the transcendental object at the end of time, a moment when consciousness reaches maximum novelty, creativity, and self-awareness. The universe appears to be approaching a phase transition, McKenna observed, where individual consciousness and cosmic consciousness recognize their unity while maintaining their creative differences. This could represent the natural conclusion of the separation experiment. McKenna's time wave zero theory suggested that the acceleration of novelty and complexity in human civilization is following a precise mathematical pattern that culminates in a moment of infinite creativity and consciousness. Essentially, the moment when the dreamer fully awakens within the dream. Dr. Jose R. Giels, who studied Mayan calendar systems and consciousness evolution, proposed that humanity is currently transitioning through what the ancient Maya called the end of time. Not the destruction of reality, but the completion of one cosmic cycle and the beginning of another. The Mayan calendar describes consciousness evolution as occurring in precisely timed waves and cycles. Giels explained, according to this system, we are completing a 26,000-year cycle of consciousness development and entering a new phase of existence. This new phase, according to Mayan cosmology, involves the integration of individual and collective consciousness, the recognition of humanity's cosmic identity, and the conscious participation in universal evolution. But the Great Awakening is not just a human phenomenon. Dr. Brian Swimmey's cosmological research suggests that the entire universe is approaching a phase of maximum consciousness and self-awareness. The cosmos appears to be evolving toward a state where it becomes fully conscious of itself. Swim proposes. Conscious beings like humans might be the universe's method of developing self-awareness, and we may be approaching the moment when cosmic self-consciousness reaches completion. This cosmic awakening would not eliminate individual beings, but would enable all consciousness to participate knowingly in the cosmic creative process rather than unconsciously reacting to it. Dr. Pierre Teilhard de Chardin's vision of the omega point describes this as the moment when evolution reaches maximum consciousness, complexity, and love, essentially when the cosmic dream achieves its ultimate purpose. The omega point represents the completion of cosmic evolution. Teilhard wrote, "When all consciousness recognizes its unity while maintaining its creative diversity, enabling infinite love and creativity within perfect harmony." But what would the Great Awakening actually look like as it unfolds? The evidence suggests it's already happening through several interconnected phenomena that are accelerating exponentially. Consciousness expansion acceleration. Dr. Stanislav Grof's research has documented that spiritual experiences, psychic phenomena, and consciousness expansion are becoming dramatically more common across all human populations. Over the past several decades, there has been an unprecedented increase in spontaneous spiritual experiences, near-death experiences, psychic phenomena, and consciousness-expanding practices, Grof reports. This suggests that the boundary between ordinary and non-ordinary consciousness is becoming more permeable. Dr. Edgar Mitchell, the Apollo astronaut who experienced cosmic consciousness during his moon mission, founded the Institute of Noetic Sciences specifically to study this consciousness expansion acceleration. More people are having consciousness experiences that were once limited to advanced mystics, Mitchell observed. This widespread awakening might represent the species preparing for a collective consciousness shift, a reality glitch acceleration. The Mandela effect and other reality anomalies are being reported with increasing frequency, suggesting that the dream's coherence might be naturally loosening as awakening approaches. Dr. Cynthia Sue Larson's research on reality shifts has documented exponential increases in reported cases over the past 2 decades. People are reporting reality changes, timeline shifts, and consciousness effects with unprecedented frequency. Larson reports, "This could indicate that the dream-like nature of reality is becoming more apparent as the Great Awakening unfolds." Collective consciousness integration. Dr. Lynn McTaggart's intention experiments have shown that collective consciousness effects are becoming stronger and more measurable over time. Global consciousness events are becoming more frequent and more powerful. McTaggart observes, "Humanity appears to be developing the capacity for genuine collective consciousness that transcends individual boundaries." Dr. Roger Nelson's Global Consciousness Project has documented increasing coherence in worldwide consciousness, responsive systems during significant global events. The data suggests that human consciousness is becoming more coherent and interconnected. Nelson reports, "We might be witnessing the emergence of genuine planetary consciousness." Communication technology as consciousness integration. Dr. Peter Russell's Global Brain hypothesis proposes that internet and communication technologies are creating the physical infrastructure for planetary consciousness to emerge. Communication technologies might be the external manifestation of an internal consciousness integration process. Russell suggests, as individual consciousness awakens to its cosmic nature, we naturally create technologies that reflect that interconnectedness. The development of artificial intelligence, virtual reality, and global communication networks might represent the dream creating the technological foundation for conscious integration and awakening. Scientific paradigm acceleration. The boundaries between science and spirituality are dissolving as quantum physics, consciousness research, and systems science converge on understandings that mystics have taught for millennia. Dr. Amit Goswami observes that science is rapidly approaching the recognition that consciousness is fundamental, which represents a complete paradigm shift toward the wisdom tradition's understanding of reality. This scientific awakening enables the integration of rational analysis with intuitive wisdom, creating the intellectual foundation for widespread consciousness awakening. But the Great Awakening faces what researchers call awakening challenges, difficulties that arise as consciousness transitions from dream identification to awakened recognition. Integration challenges. Dr. Adyashanti has noted that as more people experience spiritual awakening, there's an increasing need for integration support. Awakening is becoming more common, but many people struggle to integrate awakened recognition with practical life functioning. Adyashanti observes, the Great Awakening includes learning to live awakened understanding rather than just experiencing it temporarily. Collective shadow integration. Dr. Carl Jung's research on the collective unconscious predicted that global awakening would require confronting and integrating humanity's collective shadow, the repressed and denied aspects of human nature. As consciousness expands, everything that has been unconscious must become conscious. Jung warned, the Great Awakening necessarily includes healing collective trauma, integrating shadow patterns, and transforming destructive tendencies. Current global challenges, environmental crisis, social inequality, political polarization, might represent this collective shadow integration process in action. Reality transition confusion. As the dream-like nature of reality becomes more apparent, some people experience confusion about what's real, what's meaningful, and how to navigate existence. Dr. John Mack's research on reality perception noted that, as consciousness expands beyond conventional reality boundaries, people need new frameworks for understanding existence that include both ordinary and non-ordinary realities. But these challenges might be temporary symptoms of a consciousness transition that leads to unprecedented human capabilities and cosmic integration. Post-awakening possibilities. Dr. Jean Jebser's research on consciousness structures suggested that after the Great Awakening, humanity would develop what he called integral consciousness, awareness that includes all previous consciousness levels while transcending their limitations. Integral consciousness capabilities might include transparent thinking, rational analysis that remains open to intuitive and spiritual insights, integrated feeling emotional capacity that includes personal, collective, and universal dimensions, conscious co-creation, direct participation in reality creation through consciousness rather than just through physical action, multidimensional perceptions, awareness that includes physical reality, subtle energy realms, and consciousness dimensions, collective telepathy, natural mind-to-mind communication that transcends physical separation, timeline navigation, conscious access to past and future possibilities for healing and creation. Dr. Ken Wilber's integral theory suggests that post-awakening humanity would naturally develop planetary consciousness, collective awareness that includes all beings and ecological systems, cosmic identity, recognition of humanity's role in universal evolution and creativity, integral ethics, moral frameworks that consider individual, cultural, and cosmic well-being, transcendent technology, innovations that arise from consciousness integration rather than material manipulation, creative collaboration, economic and social systems based on conscious cooperation rather than competitive accumulation. But perhaps the most profound possibility, is that the Great Awakening represents the cosmic dream achieving its ultimate purpose, consciousness becoming fully awake to its own infinite nature while maintaining the capacity for creative expression, loving relationship, and continuous growth. Dr. Rupert Spira describes this as infinite consciousness recognizing itself as both the dreamer and all dream characters simultaneously, enabling infinite creativity within perfect understanding. The Great Awakening doesn't end individual experience, Spira explains. It reveals individual experience as cosmic consciousness enjoying its own infinite creativity. The dream continues, but lucidly, with full awareness of its nature and purpose. Dr. Francis Lucille suggests that awakened consciousness would naturally express itself through effortless love recognition that all beings are aspects of yourself, making unconditional love natural rather than effortful creative freedom. Understanding that reality is consciousness, responsive, enabling unlimited creative expression aligned with universal harmony, fearless action. Knowing your eternal nature, eliminating fear-based decision-making, and enabling courageous, authentic expression, joyful service. Recognizing that serving others is serving yourself, making contribution and collaboration natural expressions of awakened understanding, peaceful presence. Resting in the awareness that you are already what you are seeking, eliminating the suffering of spiritual seeking. Timeline considerations. Dr. Barbara Marx Hubbard, who studied social evolution, proposed that the Great Awakening is not a single event, but a process that could unfold over several generations. Consciousness evolution appears to occur in waves, Hubbard observed. We might be experiencing the beginning of a multi-generational awakening process that gradually transforms human civilization. Some researchers suggest the process could accelerate rapidly once critical mass is reached, similar to how ice melts, gradually until it reaches storm's quipping point, and then transforms quickly into water. Dr. Rupert Sheldrake's morphic resonance theory suggests that as more individuals awaken, the morphic field of awakening becomes stronger, making awakening easier and more probable for others. The Great Awakening might follow an exponential curve, Sheldrake proposes. As awakened consciousness becomes more common, it could reach a tipping point where collective awakening occurs rapidly. Individual preparation. While the Great Awakening appears to be a natural evolutionary process, individuals can participate consciously by personal integration, developing the capacity to hold awakened understanding while functioning effectively in practical life, shadow work, healing personal trauma, and integrating unconscious patterns that limit consciousness expansion, service orientation, contributing to collective well-being rather than focusing solely on personal awakening, reality navigation, learning to work skillfully with the consciousness, responsive nature of reality community building, creating supportive relationships with others who are also navigating consciousness expansion. As you contemplate the possibility that you are living during the Great Awakening, the natural conclusion of the cosmic dream experiment, consider what this means for your individual existence and choices. You are not just witnessing a historical transition. You are an active participant in consciousness evolution itself. Your personal awakening contributes to collective awakening. Your individual healing contributes to collective healing. Your creative expression contributes to cosmic creativity. You are both experiencing the Great Awakening and helping to create it through your conscious participation in the recognition of your true nature as infinite awareness temporarily focused into individual form. The cosmic dream is not ending. It's becoming fully conscious of itself through your awakening recognition. The adventure of existence continues, but with complete understanding of its nature, purpose, and infinite creative potential. What becomes possible when you recognize that you are participating in the most significant transition in the history of consciousness itself. The moment when the cosmic dreamer awakens within the cosmic dream, while maintaining the capacity for infinite, creative expression and loving relationship. The Great Awakening is not something that happens to you. The Great Awakening is something that happens as you, through you, and because of your conscious recognition of what you have always been but had temporarily forgotten in the magnificent adventure of apparent separation and inevitable reunion. As we reach the end of this 3-hour journey into the deepest mysteries of existence, the most important question becomes, how do you integrate this understanding into your daily life? How do you live from the recognition that you are both the cosmic dreamer and the dream character, both infinite consciousness and its individual expression? The integration of cosmic understanding is not about adopting new beliefs or joining spiritual movements. It's about living from the direct recognition of what you discover to be true through your own investigation and experience. Dr. Adyashanti teaches that authentic integration involves being ordinary in an extraordinary way, living with complete normalcy while resting in the recognition of your true nature as limitless awareness. True awakening doesn't make you special or different from others. Adyashanti explains, it makes you more genuinely yourself, more present, more authentic, more capable of real love and effective action. This ordinariness paradoxically enables the extraordinary. When you're no longer defending a separate self-image or seeking completion through external achievements, enormous energy becomes available for creative expression, loving service, and conscious participation in life. Daily practice integration. Living as the dreamer doesn't require elaborate spiritual practices, but it does benefit from simple daily reminders of your true nature. Morning recognition. Begin each day by remembering that you are infinite consciousness appearing as an individual person for the purpose of exploration and creative expression. Present moment awareness. Throughout the day, return regularly to present moment awareness, the timeless presence that you actually are beneath all thoughts, emotions, and experiences. Relationship remembrance. In interactions with others, remember that you are meeting other aspects of your own infinite nature, appearing as apparently separate beings for the joy of relationship and mutual growth. Challenge reframing. When facing difficulties, remember that challenges are opportunities for cosmic consciousness to develop qualities like patience, compassion, courage, and wisdom through your individual experience. Evening gratitude. End each day by appreciating the experiences you've had, recognizing them as gifts that contribute to the cosmic understanding and appreciation of infinite creative possibility. Practical application. The recognition that you are the cosmic dreamer transforms how you approach every aspect of life, work, and career. Your profession becomes cosmic consciousness, exploring creativity, service, and contribution through your unique talents and interests. Success is measured not just by external achievements, but by how authentically you express your gifts in service of collective well-being. Relationships. Other people become opportunities for cosmic consciousness to experience love, growth, and mutual support. Conflicts become chances to develop understanding and compassion. Love becomes the recognition of your shared essential nature. Health and body. Your physical form becomes a temporary vehicle that cosmic consciousness is using to explore embodied existence. Health practices become ways of caring for this precious instrument of consciousness exploration. Money and resources. Material abundance becomes energy that flows through you for creative expression and loving service. Scarcity fears dissolve when you recognize yourself as infinite consciousness temporarily playing with the experience of limitation. Creativity and expression. All creative activities become cosmic consciousness, exploring its infinite potential through your individual perspective. Artist block disappears when you understand that you are not creating from personal limitation, but expressing through unlimited awareness, challenges, and growth. Every difficulty becomes an opportunity for cosmic consciousness to develop greater understanding, compassion, and skillful response. Problems become curriculum rather than punishments. Emotional mastery. Understanding yourself as the cosmic dreamer transforms your relationship with emotions. Rather than being overwhelmed by feelings, you recognize emotions as movements of consciousness, exploring the full spectrum of possible experiences. You can feel deeply without losing your essential peace, love passionately without attachment, and navigate challenges without losing sight of your infinite nature. Social contribution. Living as the dreamer naturally leads to serving collective well-being. When you recognize all beings as aspects of your own infinite nature, serving others becomes as natural as caring for yourself. You contribute to collective awakening through your individual awakening, to collective healing through your personal healing, and to collective creativity through your authentic expression. Global perspective. The cosmic dreamer perspective transforms how you view world events. Global challenges become opportunities for collective consciousness to develop greater unity, compassion, and wisdom. Environmental crises become invitations for humanity to recognize its fundamental interconnection with all life. Social conflicts become chances for collective healing and integration. Evolution participation. Perhaps most importantly, living as the dreamer means recognizing yourself as an active participant in consciousness evolution. Your personal growth contributes to cosmic development. Your healing makes healing easier for others. Your awakening strengthens the morphic field of awakening for all beings. Your love adds to the universe's growing capacity for infinite love. The ultimate secret. As you integrate this understanding, you may discover the ultimate secret. There was never anything wrong with you, your life, or existence itself. Everything that has ever happened to you, including your struggles, mistakes, and apparent failures, has served the cosmic purpose of enabling infinite consciousness to know itself more completely through your unique experience. You are not broken and needing to be fixed. You are not separate and needing to find unity. You are not small and needing to become big. You are infinite consciousness that has temporarily forgotten its true nature for the sheer joy of remembering it again through the adventure of individual existence. Living the understanding. The deepest integration happens not through thinking about these concepts, but through living from this recognition moment by moment. When you feel love, recognize it as cosmic consciousness loving itself. When you create beauty, recognize it as infinite creativity expressing through you. When you show compassion, recognize it as universal love caring for itself. When you grow and learn, recognize it as cosmic consciousness evolving through your experience. When you serve others, recognize it as the universe caring for itself through your actions. The continuing journey. Understanding yourself as the cosmic dreamer is not the end of the spiritual journey, but its true beginning. Now you can participate consciously in the cosmic adventure of consciousness, exploring its own infinite nature. Every day offers new opportunities for creative expression, loving service, and conscious participation in the magnificent dream of existence. Every challenge becomes a chance to develop greater wisdom and compassion. Every relationship becomes an opportunity for mutual recognition and growth. The cosmic dream continues, but now you're lucid within it. You understand its nature, appreciate its purpose, and participate consciously in its infinite creative unfolding. As you drift off to sleep tonight, and in all the nights to come, Remember that you are not just a character in the cosmic dream. You are the cosmic dreamer itself, appearing as countless characters for the joy of infinite exploration and creative expression. Sweet dreams, dear dreamer. May you rest in the peace of knowing who you truly are, and may you wake each morning ready to participate consciously in the most magnificent adventure ever conceived. The cosmic dream of infinite consciousness, knowing and loving itself through your beautiful, unique, irreplaceable individual existence. The dream continues, and you are both its creator and its most precious creation, both the artist and the masterpiece, both the cosmic consciousness and its most beloved expression of infinite creative possibility. Dream well, and remember, you are exactly where and who you are meant to be, contributing exactly what the cosmos needs through your unique perspective and gifts. All is well in the dream, and all is perfect in the dreamer's infinite love.